Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's 10:30, June 3rd, 2026. This is the IPS Deprogram. I was just animating a meme I had made earlier, which you received if you got the newsletter. The memes are free, and so are the live stream notifications. The archives do go to those who are paid contributors, but you can always find the archives on Spotify. If you subscribe to Spotify, you get the video archives there and also the transcript analysis. So I don't just post the transcripts copy paste. What I do is I run it through Notebook LLM and I ask for a 500 word breakdown, bullet points for the topics, and corresponding quotations. And if you go through the transcripts, you'll see that it allows you to catch up on what we're talking about in a matter of seconds if you're pressed for time. And this is a long-form podcast. And you'll also note, too, if you follow the channel, that clips are starting to be distributed. Right now, it's just me. But I'm going to start posting these same clips over on the Video Clipper site. So if you're a video clipper, there's an opportunity to get paid for posting IPS clips. The CPM is $1. But I might raise that if I don't generate a lot of interest at first, because we're kind of a small channel. So we'll see. But the clips are showing up on the channels, and the ones that are getting more than a few hundred hits a day, I'm going to go ahead and make those ones monetizable. Lots of things to talk about today. One of the big topics has actually been Henry. His name is Henry Nowak, or Nowak. I don't know if you're familiar with this incident. We sort of glossed over it. But it's obviously, to me, based on the way it's been presented, it's very psyop-y. Could it be real? Yeah, it wouldn't be hard to fake, I guess. But the presentation of it is very psyop-y. So what you have is, and here's just an overview of the case. Henry Nowak was stabbed and killed. 18-year-old student was walking home out of Southampton, England, and he was fatally attacked. Now, he was stabbed 5 times with a ceremonial knife. The perpetrator was a Sikh, and he claimed racism. So when the police were assessing the situation, they cuffed him as though he were the antagonist. And in their care, he bled to death. Meanwhile, the attacker was, aiming for sympathy. So obviously, this has created a lot of outrage. But what I'm finding notable about it is that this happened last year. So I'm thinking, why is a stabbing from last year suddenly getting attention right now as Anthony Carmelo from the Austin Metcalf stabbing hits the news media? Because Austin Metcalf was the first attempt by, and Jake Lang was part of this, to create a White Lives Matter counterpart. They tried to turn Austin Metcalf into a white Trayvon Martin. Well, now we have that back in the news, and all of a sudden the story from the UK from last year is making the rounds and outraging people. And I'm seeing all the usual platforms, the usual influencers putting this idea out there. You should be outraged. You got Benny Johnson and Stephen Crowder. They're contextualizing it right next to Austin Metcalf. And then he said, "I can't breathe" for his last few lines or last few statements, depending on whether it was real or fake. So now they're, like Nick Fuentes is comparing it to George Floyd. So again, this is the White Lives Matter agenda they've been trying to kick up. And then they include also the one who was stabbed on the subway. And I think there was another one. But they're basically gathering all the martyrs, and they're saying they shouldn't be dead in vain. And I'm just questioning why the incident is right now creating this outrage. Because, yeah, he was killed and all that, and it's terrible, etc. However, not only was this many months ago, but it's just the timing of it. And it's already been solved, as in the one who did the stabbing was sentenced to life in prison. And I guess it's because the timing of the sentencing, but they're building a fresh outrage about something that has already been adjudicated. I mean, he's already in jail. What else do they expect? Well, the right wing wants to suggest that this is about skin color. And this is their sublimated race war thing, and that's really what it comes down to. They wouldn't care about the victim if this weren't the case. It's a matter of convenience. And they're all super opportunistic. Look at Jake Lang, hyper opportunistic, trying to turn someone else's tragedy into a political cause. Then he also was arrested for J6. And then he was arrested trying to disrupt the court proceedings where Chud, the builder, was being arraigned. I guess they lowered his bond to $1 million, but he's still in jail. But Jake Lang got arrested disrupting the court proceedings, trying to get that guy out. So he spent 10 more days, which is, he's a crisis prisoner. It's on his acting reel. He can sit in a prison for a psyop. Anyway, I'm just noting here that the usual suspects when it comes to promoting psyops. I mean, Steven Crowder was talking about it today. And he was the one who on September the 9th said, America, white America, this is your George Floyd moment, referencing the subway killing. And then Elon Musk pledged $1 million to artists to paint murals of her all across the country. And the next day, everybody forgot about her. They're like, say her name, never forget. I don't even remember her name. I made an effort not to commit it to memory because that's how they get their mind viruses into your head. I was like, I'm not gonna memorize names of these supposed martyrs and treat them like they're, again, literal, like martyrs, like they died for a cause which had nothing to do with them. And this is, again, just repeating from last year. But when Charlie Kirk died, nobody cared about her anymore. They even did this, because there was a whole thing. I remember calling it too. At the beginning of last year, Sinners was released. Well, the trailer was. And when I saw the trailer for Sinners, I said, watch, this movie is going to be the starting point for a lot of race war psyops. And we had nothing but. If you don't remember this scenario from last summer, here's just a few things that came up. After the Anthony Carmelo thing, he was able to raise a lot of money on GoFundMe, like $1 million. Well, then you had this racist girl in a playground using slurs against an autistic kid. And then she's targeted because of her language, but then she gets a GoFundMe. And these are then compared. You have the white racist and the black guy who killed a white guy, and they're both on GoFundMe raising identical amounts of money. And it became this kind of proxy race war. And then you had Raja Jackson beating up Psycho Stu, which was fake. And many put that into a racial lens, specifically the MMA fighters, who are part of the right-wing conspiracy theory ecosystem. If you haven't noticed, MMA fighters are always QAnon, Flat Earth, MAGA, woke right, all of them. Joined by John Francis, Frank Murr, X322. Armin Ross says, we should know the finer details of a real murder. Was it real? No, we would hear about a stabbing and police misconduct, but no details. Okay, you're talking about the fine. This is with every event. Like, we're given granular detail about every event. Like, this is who did it. This is why he was stabbed 5 times. He bled inside the cavity according to the physician, so they didn't see the blood. We get all these details. They inundate you. Gish gallop. It's just a way to overwhelm you, I think. But oftentimes I wonder, would these be details that they would want leaked to the public before anybody's been convicted? I also find it questionable, like with the Annunciation School shooting, when minors are put in front of the cameras to describe the massacre of their friends that just happened. It's like, you don't know if there's a second shooter out there on the loose. Maybe you made them a target. Not to mention the fact that they're probably traumatized and they're witnesses. And so every time you interview a witness, you contaminate their account of what happened. You can actually contaminate the memories. This is well understood. And to even be on television, these minors who witness school shootings would have to get a waiver from their parents. Like, okay, this is for your acting reel. I mean, it makes sense for crisis actors who start young. But I'm saying in real life, no, to me, that's a hoax indicator. So good point there. Especially when it's like what I call Scooby-Doo justice. And by Scooby-Doo justice, I mean, it's like a cartoon, an episode. You got a mystery, bad thing happens, good guys come in and pull the mask off, case closed within 30 minutes. And that's always the case. You get the manifesto, you get to find out why they did it, who to blame, and the person is either dead or crazy, so you never hear from them again anyway. What's up, Dr. Bass Ackwards, Lord Laney? Lord Laney says there's something about the I can't breathe phrase. Maybe it's an anagram for something or a shout out to the elite's wind god. Isn't it Satan called the master of air? A prince of the powers of air? Sure. But when it comes to I can't breathe, the anagram you're looking for is a better China. Which kind of makes sense if you go back to George Floyd. Actually, it started with Eric Garner. But ultimately, if you look at the idea of like the wider storyline here, the police representing the propertied class, the oppressors, and they are smothering, they're kneeling on the necks of the poor. So in the Marxist class warfare, rich versus poor narrative, I Can't Breathe has that, and it has the climate justice element where the rich are literally destroying the atmosphere and the poor are disproportionately affected by the negative effects of climate change. So we're losing our air. We can't breathe because the elite. So I Can't Breathe. Now, a better China. What does that have to do with the better China? It kind of depends. Like if you look at BLM, which is, and this Marxist strategy as some kind of CCP plot, maybe it makes sense. And if you combine that with COVID, which many people did, you might draw that conclusion. It's an interesting anagram. My other favorite anagram of recent years would be Behold the End War Live, which unscrambles to the movie produced by Higher Ground Productions, Barack Obama, Leave the World Behind. So leave the world behind, behold the end war live. And at the end of that movie, Rose is watching TV, the end of the season 17 Friends, the end of the season, and she's in a bunker. And I think that kind of symbolized something. Is that when the end war happens or when nukes go off, you're going to watch it live on TV because you're going to be locked down at home. Zell says, yeah, I'm going to fly to Seattle next week, of course. I'm not going to drive there. I'll drive back. And there's a few reasons. Mainly it's the travel costs. And I could just put that into copies of the book. And then I could just take my time driving back. But I have to be there for the entirety of 6/11 because, in my opinion, this is too big of a place, too many uncontrollable variables, too many witnesses for them to do it during the day, if it's going to be done. And we're talking about a 9/11-y event, something on that scale. But I would think it would happen in the early hours of 6/11. When everyone's asleep. And you know how many content creators they took off YouTube in the last few months? Like 12 million. I mean, they're getting rid of competition. They're preparing the area, clearing the airspace from drones. The FBI is prepared to shut down drones. They've shut off they shut down many parking garages surrounding that big stadium. So it seems like they've set the stage. And I'm thinking, if we go back to the predictive programming, Sleepless in Seattle stands out for a few weird reasons, but that phrase makes me think, maybe this is something they do late at night. And then everyone's up all night reacting, but what are you going to do? You've been EMP'd. There's no internet, no electricity. Driving that far would be brutal. Well, it's only 20 some hours. I mean, my last job before the stalking, I was doing transport for a mortuary transport, and I would drive to Farmington, to Espanola, back to Albuquerque. I would drive every night 14 hours sometimes, 12 to 14 hours. Although it is brutal because I developed what they call trucker shoulder. I had an impinged shoulder because of the posture of driving for many hours. And I guess I was pretty tense. Because, you have bodies in the back, you can't wreck, you have time, you have to meet these times, there's no time for breaks. It was really not an easy job, but over time, I kind of reset the position of my shoulder and I lost mobility. And I spent the rest of the year in a great deal of pain, waking up because my shoulder would just, if I moved it too much, it would just send these jolts of pain. I mean, I fixed it, but yes, it's not an uncommon thing. It's a repetitive motion injury. So yes, driving that long can be brutal, but I could do it, once or twice a year. It's just not a nightly thing. All right, let's get moving here through the main topics. So the main one, of course, the stabbing thing. Yeah, they've hyped it up. I mentioned this McDonald's ad, Chick-a-Boom. It's this Belgium ad, and it's going out everywhere in the world. And it has exploding chicken sandwiches, exploding chicken nuggets. And I went to the commercials, and the commercials have someone taking a bite, and then they explode, or rather the food explodes behind them. So exploding people, exploding food. And then you have the Economist cover where the earth is a soccer ball about to get kicked. And when we talk about predictive programming, we're not just talking about movies and concurrent programming, because of real time. It saturates the entire media ecosystem. What I describe it as every single available propaganda vector, including commercials, where everything in your environment will reinforce the message. And now everyone is associating, or they're getting this boom. And so what does that really say? And so I looked up the phrase Chick-a-Boom. It leads to some ridiculous song. I didn't find too much in there, but there could be. I watched a lot of the ads. And yeah, the ads are, if you think about it, kind of gruesome. Because it looks like people exploding. I mean, it's just food, but still. What are they putting out there? So again, a lot of people are going to explode. Makes me wonder about bombs. Because last night we had a caller on Fakeologist who lives near Seattle. And he was describing how difficult it would actually be to take down the Space Needle unless they had rigged something beneath it. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. If we're talking about a terror attack, which is what this seems to be, like, I don't necessarily think this is going to be Russia doing something or Iran. I think this is homegrown. And the reason why they would do it now, as I mentioned last night, is that when 9/11 happened, they had a monopoly on our attention. Since then, that has fragmented. To access all of us at the same time in a synchronized manner, it's going to require something like the World Cup. We're all plugged in. Like the Super Bowl. The reason why so many conspiracy theorists watch Super Bowls thinking something bad's going to happen is that they recognize, well, this is when they have everybody looking at the same thing. If half the country woke up late on 9/11, it wouldn't have had the impact. They needed everybody glued to the screen. And again, that's really difficult to do now. But as we get closer to the soccer games, we see that globally, yeah, we are synchronizing. So the timing of something would be perfect, not just for a psyop, but for a group to send a message. And that's what I think it's looking like. And there's been a lot of predictive content for fallout, which require lockdowns, bunkers, nukes, but also blackouts. Leave the world behind, white noise, for example. Blackouts, EMPs. I suggested that there's an EMP foreshadowed in the final episode of The Boys that takes away the Trump character's power. The Homelander is blasted. So EMPs and blackouts. That's also predicted here. The Wicked Part 1 ends where the Wicked Witch EMPs the Emerald City. She sends an electromagnetic pulse, and the Wizard of Oz is down there losing his power. Repeated theme. Well, Seattle's referred to as the Emerald City. So there's something going on here. And the fact is, too, that it was originally released on 11/3, which is a very significant date here. If we go into the timeline and backtrack 11/3, like 11/3 is Godzilla's birthday. And Godzilla you can associate with the Kraken, with the attack from the sea, even Poseidon, the storm god. There's a lot of foreshadowing referencing water. In fact, in 2020, the NHL had its 32nd team emerge there in Seattle, the Kraken. And what is their logo? It's just the Kraken on the Space Needle. And their original trailer, which happened to be 1 minute and 13 seconds, 113, the original trailer that they released had what appeared to be an EMP hitting Seattle. Storm, lightning, water. Last 11/3, Dick Cheney died. Architect of 9/11, dying on the day the new tower opens. So the new tower, the One World Trade Tower, has the 113 association. And the One World Trade Tower has this Tower of Babel correlation that we've discussed. And it's emphasized in Megalopolis, by the way. The main character, who's the Trump character, is actually an architect. In that movie, Francis Ford Coppola has all of the predictive programming elements that we always discuss. The Trump assassination attempt. It has the 9/11ing from space, something hitting New York. But without getting too sidetracked, the 113 thing is the number 113, which you see in Pixar. In Wall-E, it's associated with the directive. They call it the Directive 113: evacuate Earth, go into the bunkers. So it has this apocalyptic meaning to it. And something else you might connect is the Challenger exploded at 113, and the Columbia shuttle was the 113th shuttle mission. And what does that mean? Well, there's some relationships there timing-wise, but Challenger, there's something to it, the term Challenger. Like, I think it's significant that, speaking of the underwater scenario, and of course James Cameron, whose movie T2 was just in theaters, which has the nuke, on 9/11, he was at the site of the sunken Titanic, and his movie Titanic has predictive programming for 9/11. The thing's splitting in two, you got the 9/11 jumpers, it sinks. But on 9/11, he was in a submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger. So he's the Challenger in the abyss, because he's filming a documentary called Ghosts in the Abyss. And this is, again, on 9/11, which we've correlated symbolically to Revelation 9/11 and the destroyer, or the Challenger, overlooking the abyss. This is all subtext, symbolic subtext, that seems to be leading towards this build-up towards the fall of the Tower of Babel. That's kind of what this is leading toward. And I think the Titanic sinking is a metaphor for the West, which was revisited in that movie Don't Look Up, where the Earth is like the Titanic, and instead of a iceberg, you have a comet. And the main character is Leonardo DiCaprio from Titanic. And the movie's just an allegory for the West sinking because of capitalism and climate change. The iceberg, the comet, it's climate change, and the scientists are too greedy, or rather they're influenced by greed, so instead of deflecting it, they decide to mine the thing and we all die. Ignoring the scientists will get you killed. In fact, there was an interesting thing with Moonfall and Don't Look Up, where both movies featured a main character who was a scientist who was experiencing intense anxiety and had to take a lot of pills because they were terrified about the end of the world. It's like, that's interesting. Like, these modern scientists in these movies are like these saviors and Noahs that no one believes until it's too late. But there is a build-up here, and the Space Needle is part of the story. Yesterday we were talking about the symbolism of it. It is indeed a UFO and a tractor beam. And the UFO lore is hard to separate from nukes. The aliens are always poised to come in and stop us from blowing each other up, like these cosmic referees. By the way, phones are open. 888-866-HOAX. So getting back to the topic here about dates and numbers, if you look back, there are relationships between these various events and numbers and dates, which people read a lot of esoteric meaning into. I really refrain from that. I'm just interested in the patterns. Like 900 days after 9/11, you had the London subway bombings, that subway terror attack, which they called it was 3/11 is what they called it. They said it was their 9/11 because there were like 2,000 people injured and 193 killed. But these events are all interconnected. They're part of the same fictional universe. And so we've seen this buildup of symbolism attaching 11/3 to the notion of this destroyer, the Challenger, the Godzilla thing. There's something to it that's very repetitive. I think it's highly significant now that we have a movie coming out from the Nolans, Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan, Fallout, Westworld. Christopher Nolan has Batman and, of course, Oppenheimer. They're part of the build-up, the predictive programming build-up, as is James Cameron. And I brought this up on Fakeologist yesterday, because this is predictable. I said, they're putting T2 in the theaters because they want to plaster the nuke onto the zeitgeist. They want it in everybody's head. And what has happened since then? What has happened since they announced T2 coming out? Stuff like this. Increased reports of fireball-style meteors across the Midwest. You had the Blue Origin disaster where that rocket exploded, and it looked, for all intents and purposes, like a nuke, as described by witnesses and on the video. It's impossible not to make that correlation. You had the fireworks warehouse blowing up, big mushroom cloud, very dramatic. And then you have in Washington State some chemical plant, white liquor, being the cause of that explosion. But again, we've had this theme of nukes just everywhere you go. It's like I said with the Chickaboom thing. They managed to saturate the media ecosystem with these things in advance. This was very prevalent with the Charlie Kirk event, the day of and even after. There was a lot of references to JFK in correlation with Charlie Kirk. So, for example, and even the name Charlie, they use what is called forced memeing, where they're planting things in front of you on purpose to create these associations. Like many of you may remember on the day that Charlie Kirk was shot, Charlie Sheen started his comeback tour. So he had this Netflix special 9/10 Charlie. So his comeback, he goes to Joe Rogan. And he and Joe Rogan are talking about the JFK assassination. And Charlie recounts an anecdote where he was at a theater watching a play and somebody in the balcony threw something and hit him on the head. He said he was sniped. Charlie said he was sniped. And Joe Rogan laughed and said that was a great shot. Commercial break. We come back. Oh, by the way, Charlie Kirk just got shot. So the overlap here is the JFK associations, Charlie talking about getting sniped, and then Charlie getting sniped, and then comeback, Charlie Sheen's comeback, starting on the same day as Charlie Kirk's America comeback tour. Many overlaps, that's just scratching the surface. You have examples of like Roger Stone, his last exchange with Charlie Kirk was, hey, come on my show and we'll talk about the JFK assassination. So they create these narratives that are impossible to ignore. In a way, I just consider predictive programming to be a form of advertising, conditioning. Armin Ross says, so if 611 involves an EMP given the Homelander predictive programming, would that mean the end of the Trump character as well? Yeah, it does. You see, the predictive programming for the Trump character goes back to the late 50s. And in all the instances where he is this tyrant, there are attempts to kill him. And he survives. He survives the machete. Even the Homelander survived the first one. But they have this theme where he's surviving it. In Megalopolis, he survives. Mickey 17, he survives. And yet, then Civil War comes in 2024. This movie Civil War, the Bugaloo Boys, Civil War, Trump is still in office, and they eventually get into the White House, in the Oval Office, and they bring in specifically a black woman to kill him, which I think correlates with the Wicked Witch confronting the Wizard of Oz. It correlates with the female superhero who EMP'd the Homelander. There's a dynamic here that they're trying to establish in all these films. Just like all these films that have a Trump character have an Obama character. In The Boys, it's the Edgar. And Edgar is his antagonist, much as in Megalopolis, the same actor is the mayor who orchestrates the assassination attempt on Caesar Catalina. And the fact that he correlates with Obama is very consistent with Obama being connected to the series The Boys. So there's a subtext here that's kind of intriguing if you follow along with the world stage politicians and their corresponding fictional characters. Their stories actually track. They even tracked MTG's story, which is unbelievable considering that the script is several years old. And it predicted in the character Firecracker that MTG would go from worshiping Trump to calling him the Antichrist. And then she would go to Miami. Well, that's what happened with Firecracker. Although she didn't really go to Miami, she was killed, but they joked about her. What, she'd go to Miami? So now we have the predictive programming basis in 2024 I'm sorry, in Civil War from 2024, and then this recent episode of The Boys where the Trump character actually does get it. And I was in the theater watching The Boys, and everybody in the theater but me cheered loudly when they got the Homelander. And I realized Trump derangement syndrome is a mind virus, and this entire show is just an effigy of Trump that they could just beat and get off on, watching this thing get destroyed again and again. So it was a way for them to channel. It's like 2 minutes of hate. Big Brother, 1984, 2 minutes of hate, where Big Brother tells them, this is the enemy of the people, this is who you must hate, rage against this person, and everybody just directs their rage as they're told. The series The Boys was basically 2 minutes of hate for the Trump deranged. And when I saw the entire theater cheering for his death, it struck me as strange. And it's not that I'm sympathetic or a fan of the Homelander. I'm not saying he was my favorite character, but I've never seen such a unanimous reaction from a group of random people. Not in a theater. That was unusual. And that told me mind virus, superorganism. I haven't assimilated into that Borg, and I can see it for what it is. And so, yeah, this is preparation. And in the same episode, they kill Musk. In a spin-off show, they kill Musk. Musk dies in the madness. Musk gets arrested. Look, Musk has been villainized in many movies. And in every one of these instances, the Musk character is pretty much bringing about a pandemic of violence through his mind viruses and propaganda. That's actually a recurring theme with all of his predictive programming counterparts. Happy birthday, Fepe. That's true. The penguin mascot of our channel was born on June 2nd, 2017. So just had a birthday. And if you don't know the story of the penguin, we knew at the very beginning that the channel would be censored. So I said we need to do like they did with the frog, where the Fringe gets a mascot. We need some mascot to serve as a rallying point, a meme, so that we can identify our operations, whatever happens into the future. And so this meme has kind of been, it's sort of evolved a little bit, the penguin concept, but it's fundamentally the same, what the penguin represents. The raft, and the idea of the fringe, the deepest divers. There's quite a lot with penguins that pertain to what we're talking about. Even surviving in a harsh environment, because we've been censored, we've been fringed. But it has served. The penguin mascot has been our consistent banner and will continue to be so. The idea here, of course, is at the very beginning, we're going to be censored, so we need to have some kind of meme that associates with us. So to get into the channel, you had to be moderated. So everyone had a blue wrench, which YouTube recently changed it to the blue shield just to spite us. So we had this army of blue wrenches, and every person had to have some penguin. Well, we actually originally was all the same one. We had the same exact meme. People called us a cult, which we were. In a way, kind of are, but the word cult is kind of a pejorative. Think tank makes a lot more sense. Did you hear about the new George Floyd clone in the UK, Henry Nowak, Dark Ghost Wind? Yeah, Trayvon Martin, but for working class British people. Yeah, I pointed this out because they attempted to turn Austin Metcalf into the white Trayvon Martin last year. And now Carmelo, the killer, is on trial. And now you have this murder from last year in the news because the perpetrator, the killer, has life in prison, justice. And now everyone's like, no, we need real justice for him. Because they're using this thing as their white Trayvon Martin, white lives matter. We'll see if it takes off. White victimhood, white oppression, and white genocide is the core of woke right politics. You can hear Nick Fuentes, who has been talking about this thing quite a lot. He says this is a white genocide. So it's alarmist. It's strange that he's a spokesperson for traditional Christian, traditionalist white Christian identitarianism, considering that he's living in his mom's basement, unmarried, and seems to have some kind of antipathy toward any interactions with women, which is his prerogative. But he's claiming to be some paragon of white nationalism and traditional family values. And I'm like, where's your babies? Where's your trad wife? Meanwhile, he's associating with meth addicted looks maxers who are buying nightclubs in Miami and getting nose jobs. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're trying to increase your quote SMV, it doesn't seem like you're looking for a wife. The whole thing's a fraud. Nick Fuentes is a huge fraud, and his entire army of, they call themselves gripers, because it's all grievance politics. The gripers are all just losers and frauds. And they cling to their J-pill narrative because it gives them a scapegoat for their own failures, and they call themselves incels because they think that the J's are keeping them from getting trad wives. It's really kind of sad and pathetic, but at the same time, you know, you look at someone like that and you're like, well, just, yeah, weed yourself out of the gene pool. Or who cares? You know, who cares? Let things sort themselves out. Like YouTube deleting 12 million channels that they deem AI slop. You know, I happen to think that a lot of the AI slop wasn't that bad, and a lot of it was improving. And then also, who are they to say that we can't enjoy slop? What if the public says we want AI slop? Is YouTube going to say, no, you must have these more cultivated standards? You can't just enjoy that. What if we do? Are they a publisher or a platform? Like, I think that we should have the right to monetize absolute inane garbage. And if people want to watch it, let them. But apparently we don't get to make that choice. And I was deemed AI slop and a replicant. I'm not even a human. They dehumanized me. They took my money. They took away my humanity. And there's nothing I can do about it. Which is because it's a private company, they say. And normally I'd agree with that. I say it's a private company. If they want to kick you out, you know, I'm a tenant. And if I don't do what they like, they can, yeah, sure, that's fine. If it were a private company. But, you know, who here thinks that YouTube isn't just a wing of government? How is it different from the mainstream media? It is serving the interests of government, psychological warfare, and psyops, and has every time. So you can't even say it's a private company. It's just a joke. So I don't expect to be awarded my humanity back after 90 days of good behavior. At no point do I ever anticipate that I will care about YouTube's monetization, and I'm not even trying. It's really not my concern anyway. As I said before, when we invade the world stage, we're bringing our own oxygen supply. We don't need to breathe their air. You know, we're not trying to take a slice of their pie. We're actually, if anything, we're just burning down sections of their pie and establishing a base, independent of theirs. Let them deal with it. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought, Lord Laney. The white liquor explosion, white liquor, was giving off Turner Diary vibes. Explosive white liquor was a code for white people exploding with rage. That's exactly what I thought when I saw that. Same thing with white noise, about the train derailment, which happened in real life. And actors from the movie had to be evacuated in real life. They went from being actors to crisis actors. But yeah, that's 100% of what I thought, because the Turner Diaries narrative was put into play when Charlie Kirk was shot. If you don't know the backstory, actually it was put into play when Trump kicked off his campaign in Waco. You can't separate Waco from Trump, from white nationalism, from domestic terrorism, from Alex Jones. These things are all interconnected in very specific ways. Even the Maxwell Azrello with his anti-fascist screed. In fact, I got to bring this one up. Maxwell Azrello, the guy who set himself on fire outside the Trump court, the trial at the courthouse. He had a manifesto that said Trump and Clinton were on the same team. That this is poor versus rich. Well, at the end of his manifesto, he talked about how some of us are starting to see how they, quote, bend history. I've never heard the phrase bend history used like that before, except for this channel, in the books that I was publishing. We talked about news benders, and I have been saying, if you can recognize news bending and understand what that means, well, then you just extend it from a news cycle, a month, a year, to decades of fakery. And you're like, well, they're bending history itself, because accumulated news is history. But anyway, in the Turner Diaries, you have the New World Order tearing down borders, mass immigration, and the white nationalists want to strike back. So they have this thing called the Org. And in fact, there were Turner Diaries references at J6. I think they called it Night of the Rope. So there was a bit of a tie in there as well. But Timothy McVeigh, was radicalized by Waco when the ATF incinerated Dave Koresh. So the man on fire is kind of a theme here. And Dave Koresh being 33, McVeigh dies a few years later at 33 by execution. So McVeigh was motivated to take action in retaliation. So on 4/19, which is Waco's incineration day, Maxwell Azrello's incineration day, that was the day he hit Oklahoma City with Terry Nichols, if you believe the story. I've looked back at it and it looks fake as anything that they show us today. But looking back at this, he retaliates and he's inspired by the Turner Diaries, a book written by Andrew MacDonald, who was born on 9/11, 1933. And in the book, it has a scene where the leader of the organization puts himself, his name is Earl Turner, he puts himself into a plane filled with bombs and he flies into the Pentagon. Very 9/11-y. Well, this is considered martyrdom, like 9/11. So when the martyr of the org, when the leader is martyred, then they call it the turning point. So the turning point is when the white nationalist army rises up and starts nuking everybody else. That's kind of the general storyline. When Charlie Kirk was taken out at Turning Point USA, which I had associated with the Turner Diaries for years, I said there's no way Turning Point USA isn't going to somehow turn into the Turner Diaries with the people they're platforming. And I've been vindicated in this. And the day after Kirk was shot on 9/11, 2025, every single right-wing pundit was saying, this is the turning point. Jack Posobiec said, future historians will say that this sacrifice by Charlie Kirk was the turning point where we saved the West. Sean Francis says, Novak came from an affluent family, but Tommy Robinson plebes are the ones getting angry. Armin Reese says, who takes over from the Homelander in The Boys? It might indicate a world stage replacement. Interesting. There's an alternate version of it where the Homelander actually nukes the world. Well, he uses his laser eyes. I'll have to look back and see how they finished that show off. I don't actually recall if they replaced him or how. A group of penguins is called a rookery, says Dr. Bass Ackwards. On the water, it's a raft. On the land, it's a waddle, which isn't all that flattering. I like raft because if you think about it, the world stage is submerged in a sea of irrelevance. And the only people who aren't submerged in it, who aren't lost and discombobulated, are those of us who are buoyant. And a raft of penguins is pretty much buoyant. Other people try to join us, but they're just mules with saddlebags full of red pills, and they try to swim out to the raft and they sink. It's like, we're not kicking them out of the raft. You come in here with your chemtrail, anti-vax, Mandela effect, J-pill nonsense, and yeah, you're going to sink. The stuff isn't buoyant. It's designed to drag you down to the bottom along with everybody else. JT333 says, long live Fepe. Yeah, so we definitely did. If you look at his face and his eyes, I mean, it's true. We were modeling the concept of the frog people, the groypers, they call themselves. And so if you look closely, you might notice that our penguin is in fact a modified frog meme. But that doesn't detract from its utility or even its weird beauty. But yeah, it's a little strange looking. So I was thinking, if our tax dollars are funding ufology, which is mysticism and paranormal research, and now we're getting into interdimensionals, we're getting into demons, about telepathically summoning UFOs. Since we're in that territory, should we not have maybe some type of government office for necromancy? Channel Charlie Kirk. Channel him. Let's hear it in his own words. Let's get an investigation going into chupacabras and Bigfoot. Like, let's just open the doors. Overton window, just smash it. We don't need it. Everything's real. Nothing is fake. That's where we're at. Where you can talk about communicating with assassinated political influencers and not lose credibility. Where you can talk about interdimensional aliens and still retain your position in society. It's really bizarre. By the way, Professor Yang, Professor Yang, we often refer to this individual who I knew was a shill on day one, but I didn't want to spoil it for anybody. That guy is now being called the Chinese Nostradamus. I'm sorry, but your predictions mean nothing if you think you're predicting real events and you're not calling out fakery. His entire assessment is garbage, regurgitated. It's like Timu David Icke. Not impressed at all. And David Icke doesn't get enough credit for his work because he was selling this stuff decades ago. I liked him better when he was all about reptilians, though. So I got a comment regarding my video, Borderline Shooting Hoax Photo Analysis 1. This is on BitChute, where a lot of my videos actually survive on BitChute. So this person, FlyGuy24, says, quote, and this is regarding, okay, if you don't know about Thousand Oaks, the Thousand Oaks shooting happened 13 months after the Vegas shooting. 50 survivors from Vegas were at a concert in Thousand Oaks. This is in California, 13 months later. 50 people from shooting A show up at this location, a different country music concert, and they all get shot. And it gets even worse, because down the street from this was a drill, and the drill was based on Vegas and had 50 crisis actors. This was reported as an eerie coincidence by the news. So 50 people come from one shooting a year later to another place, and it happens again, and the first shooting is being reenacted down the street. So it doesn't really take a lot of thought to put this together, that the drill was the event and shouldn't have been reported on. That's pretty much my takeaway. Not an uncommon thing. This idea of surviving multiple shootings is done to create the perception that these things are that common when they're clearly not. And you may recall too that so the right wing didn't care about school shootings. They didn't care about Parkland or Sandy Hook because they're pro-gun, and they usually share some kind of ideological connection with the shooter, like Nick Cruz or Patrick Crusius, anti-immigrant, racist, Nazis. So the right wing never really criticized these characters because they were used to demonize the entire right. So they didn't give their sympathy to the events. So then the psyops pivoted to, well, let's shoot up country music concerts. Let's target the right wing. Make them, ironically, the victims of the Second Amendment that they support so much. Which is a recurring theme. I mean, if you recall, Charlie Kirk was being questioned about the Second Amendment when he was shot in the neck. So they love this irony. The irony of a bunch of country music concert attendees getting shot at, to them, is ironic, and again, it's meant to influence them because these are influence operations. Well, that didn't really work. They did a few of those. I don't think it had the impact. The way that they finally reached the right wing with mass shooting terrorism is they started using left-wing shooters targeting Christian schools and Christian children. So now you have the left-wing, Reddit radicalized trans furry shooters killing Christians. Now you got the right wing worried. And they've been doing this consistently ever since. And now whenever there's a shooting, the first thing you hear from the right is, it was a furry trans Reddit shooter. And they show a random picture, and then that goes viral, and everyone thinks that's the truth. And then the next day, the truth comes out, it was a right-winger. But by then, it's too late, because the right wing has already made up their mind. But that's how they got them involved in caring about school shootings again. So anyway, this is what Fly Guy 24 said. My cousin's uncle was at the shooting. It was totally real. Bart came home that night with scuffed up knees and elbows. It was real. I trust him, too. He was also involved in another mass shooting years ago, and his neighbor in 2019 was next door to the Vegas shooting. His ex-girlfriend's dog was actually at the Boston Marathon, lost both hind legs. They originally named him Cuddles, but changed his name to Boot Scoot because the legs, like he had, now dragged his booty when he walked after the incident. So Fly Guy 24 is attesting, and this is the first believable 6 degree of separation account of a mass shooting being real that I actually believe. Because normally when people say, oh yeah, my cousin's uncle's dog walker died at 9/11, I'm like, nah, fake. But this one seems kind of believable. So Fly Guy 24, I'm sorry I got it wrong. The Thousand Oaks shooting was real. And Boot Scoot is evidence. He wasn't a crisis acting amputee playing a victim. No, that dog was actually bombed. Okay, now speaking of Henry, is it Nowak? I got to remember his name. Nowak. This British Trayvon Martin victim. Now take a look at this. This is a great example of how the propaganda is coming from both sides. So right-wing propagandists are sharing this image. Now I added the red line because what it looks like Roman soldiers nailing Jesus to the cross. A martyr. That's what it looks like. And the hands that are doing it are demonic and pointed. And this is because the cops are, one of them is a woman with very long, pointy, scary nails, and she's got these blue gloves. So the nails are poking at the glove, and it looks like witch hands. So here you have like these demonic hands, and then his hand, the victim's hand, has lost its pallor. It's white, translucent. It looks like a crucifixion. It's dramatic. Well, that's not the real picture. Somebody has altered the picture. The hands were not clawed, nor was the hand that white. But they positioned it and created this picture to make it look like this. And this is the one that's going viral. And nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to correct it. So I just added these lines to emphasize that what you're seeing here is the creation of a martyr. Very effective, too. I mean, I see a lot of people reacting to this, which, of course, is the agenda of the day. On the right, it's their Trayvon Martin. Again, Henry Nowak was stabbed back in December of 2025, early December. I'm not justifying it. Hampshire police say that he would have died anyway, whether he was cuffed or not. That's a very cold thing to say. But they're like, yeah, it was a fatal wound anyway. Handcuffing him. Very bizarre and dismissive. Only generating more outrage. Capture the Loop says, now the shooter's all right on ammunition. Oh yeah, what did Tyler Robinson write? He wrote the directional inputs for a video game where they drop a bomb called like something Eagle. And then he had some kind of furry message. I got to look back. But now they write their messages on their guns, on their weapons. They use whiteout to put their backward swastikas and their bad words. Armin Reese says, in the series finale of The Boys, Edgar, playing Giancarlo Esposito, steps back and takes over. Okay, he takes over Vought. Again, that's right, he's freed. Now that's interesting. You see, Obama was also on the set of The Age of Disclosure. So just so you know what I'm getting at with this, that actor he refers to, he's the chicken man from Breaking Bad, Esposito. This actor is the antagonist to the Trump character. And, of course, Trump character survives an assassination attempt in the last one. But there is this element here where it's Trump-Obama is being mirrored here. And the Trump-Obama antagonism started back when Trump called him out on being an alien. Obama's an alien. He's not really an American. The birther movement has been a part of this. So there's this subtext between the two that's reflected in the movies. So I mentioned Megalopolis. Same actor. He's a mayor, orchestrates the assassination attempt. Or if you look at A Man in Full, based on a Tom Wolfe novel, they repurposed it to be about Trump. And has his antagonist is a Chicago mayor who brings about his downfall. And eventually, he actually does die in that one. Now, it's not the same actor, but Chicago mayor, it's not hard to put that together. And then Marvel released the Captain America Brave New World. The trailer came out on 7/12, the day before Trump was shot in Butler. And they changed the trailer because it has the president at a podium getting shot at and ducking below the podium. Played by Harrison Ford, who was born on 7/13, interestingly, which is Julius Caesar's birthday. And they did use Trump, or a Trump-looking person, to portray Julius Caesar back in 2017 in Shakespeare in the Park. And Laura Loomer actually interrupted the assassination scene. But again, 7/12, trailer comes out, president gets shot at. Guess who plays the antagonist to the president, who becomes the Red Hulk, like MAGA? His antagonist is played by, well, the character is Sidewinder, but he's played by same actor. So again, recurring theme, same actor, same relative thing, sort of like how the Wicked Witch confronts the Trump character. And then you have the black female soldier killing the Trump character. You have the female with the superpowers blasting him. So you have this kind of a recurring themes, common denominators that to me suggest the real event, that hint at how it's really going to happen. And I started picking up on common denominators and noting them after the Charlie thing. Because I was like, every instance of predictive programming for the Charlie Kirk event has the name Tyler, references an execution, references that September 10th date, and in some way has some kind of Storm or Jezebel connection. But there were like 5 or 6 common denominators prevalent in like 90% of these examples. Edgar signals a massive shift in corporate strategy, announcing that Vought needs to rethink its relationship with superheroes. This repositions Vought back towards his original vision, focusing on pharmaceuticals and defense, rather than managing high-profile, volatile media powerhouse of celebrity soups. Well, if you need any more evidence that the coordination between mass entertainment and fake events is actually systemic and real, you just got to watch The Boys season 4 and 5, even further back, because these pre-recorded shows are foreshadowing very specific details about fake events that occur 2 years later. From the statue of Trump with the raised fist referencing Butler, to the Trump Bible, and then you have the Homelander's Bible and statue happening at the same time, both of their statues prayed over by evangelicals. The assassination attempt thing, the season 4 finale was so closely timed that they actually altered it. And they've all commented on it. They've commented on their own show's prescience. They try to somewhat downplay it. They act like it's an eerie coincidence. But as I've documented, this is far beyond coincidence, and it's 100% predictable. So the fact that they actually kill the Trump character in a very gruesome way, like JFK, you see all the brains, the fact that they do that and they kill Musk, I think is indicative of the direction this thing may be going. And the killing of the Trump character is a recent addition, just as the Musk characters are all fairly recent, but they all have the consistent theme. He releases the mind virus that causes the population to go violent while the elite hide underground. Again, this is Naked Gun, this is The Madness, this is Mountainhead. Even Superman, his Lex Luthor character. Synchro says, in Do the Right Thing, Giancarlo Esposito plays a character named Buggin' Out, B.O., Barack Obama. He's the antagonist, and Sal, the pizzeria owner, is called Mr. Trump. Yeah, so the Trump-Obama dialectic goes back. And what it relates to, I believe, is the political horseshoe. And the right is associated with 1776. The left with 1619, which is what what Obama represents, the 1619 Project, BLM. Trump is MAGA, 1776. So these are two competing worldviews, and each one is the face of what that view looks like at its extreme, as perceived by the other side. Trump derangement, Obama derangement. Now, this is a carefully cultivated, well-designed dialectic. It's not a coincidence that they took Obama's portrait out of the White House and replaced it with one of Trump with his raised fist, suggesting that you missed. So it suggests this subtext, this antagonism, which is, again, it's theatrical, but it's there. And it started with the birther movement. Capture the Loop says, we need AI leaders. Make us beg for AI mommy state. Sinker says, Obama and his wife said their first date was to go watch Do the Right Thing. Well, what you're pointing out here, because that's a Spike Lee movie, is that these are characters on the world stage, and Spike Lee's a meta-scripter. And they probably watched it knowing that this is foreshadowing elements of your characters. Spike Lee is a meta-scripter. I believe he directed the George Floyd event. We do sometimes make these educated guesses. You know, who was, like someone's like, oh, who did 9/11? You know, usually when someone asks who did 9/11, they mean Israel. I'm like, no, it was Stanley Kubrick, James Cameron. I guess you could probably add in Tom Clancy and half a dozen other writers. Maybe even the director of Fight Club. You know, in Fight Club, there's a scene where, what is his actual name? Not Tyler, but the main character. His name is actually Jack Sparrow from the book. They don't say it in the movie. So the main character is talking about this Project Mayhem and gelatin explosives wrapping the columns of buildings. And as he's narrating this, you see behind him the Century Plaza Twin Towers. The Century Plaza Twin Towers have the same architect as the WTC in New York. And then he's talking about gelatin explosives wrapping these columns. Well, there's an art group staying in the towers in 2001 called Gelatin B. And Gelatin B was working on some art project, and you can only kind of guess at what they were doing. It involved removing windows from the Trade Center, a helicopter taking video of them outside of it. So what were they doing? Well, some think that they were actually the controlled demolition team putting all of the explosives into place, like maybe some kind of explosive like described in Fight Club. Well, you can read their little manifesto for their art project, and they said, yeah, our art project, you'll see it on 9/11, basically is what they said. Leading me to think, okay, are they planning an art show on 9/11? Or was 9/11 the production itself? John Francis says, I think Obama became one world leader saving us. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking here. That could be the case. That maybe Obama would step in. Because, you know, he's been in the news recently saying he would be our ambassador to the aliens, to the Galactic Federation, if they come down here to regulate. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't they go to Trump? Why would Obama insert himself into this? All right, let us proceed. Now, this is new. I'm not even going to spend too much time on it other than just to point out how this is indicative of the thing being a hoax. At the Charlie Kirk shooting, there's footage here that shows when the EMTs try to get access to Charlie's personal security blocks them. And they had an armored vehicle making sure the road wasn't blocked so they could escape pretty easily. But anyway, this video shows EMTs trying to get to Charlie, but the security personnel won't give them access. Now, the conspiracy theorists think this means something entirely different, that they were killing Charlie. No, this was Squib Team 6. Anybody who says exploding microphone, palm, pistol, second shooter, anyone saying that is a controlled opposition shill, or they're just uninformed. It was a squib, and Squib Team 6 had to make sure that no one could see. Nick Fuentes, woke right 30-year-old virgin, part-time looks maxer. Sometimes he takes the advice of Clavicles. Clavicles is the head looks maxer, who apparently is having his nostrils reduced. The nostril circumference, they're not symmetrical. Well, it's because they're not. I think there's always a minor discrepancy. But he's having some work done. This is a guy who is platformed by America First. That's why I criticize it. America First, traditional Christian values, and this guy's getting his nostrils adjusted to increase his SMV when he's not even interested in S. It doesn't make any sense. So here's Nick Fuentes, anyway, the spokesmouth for this, and he's saying, Henry Nowak is George Floyd. We've lost the will to fight. We've lost the will to live. Unless white people are willing to fight for a place in this world, we're going to die. And, I don't care about this racial stuff. It's all just tribalism and propaganda. But it should be pointed out that he is deportable by his own standards because he's not technically pure. It's strange that he's the face of the movement, which to me just seems very consistent with how these psyops are run. He's a parody of extremism, and there's no way it could ever become an actual movement. It's always going to be grassroots and fake like TPUSA. TPUSA is mostly ghost chapters. Speaking of ghosts, Charlie Kirk's ghost, right? Well, it turns out TPUSA, his ghost is talking to John Mappin and Candace Owens. Well, apparently, like 90% of the TPUSA chapters are ghost chapters. There aren't real students opening these things and having meetings and talking about St. Charlie. These things don't exist. They're just empty. Kind of reminds me of how they game the system when it comes to books and movies, where they buy seats, they buy books. I talked about Sound of Freedom the other day with Jim Caviezel, and that production company, Angel Studios, they have this thing where you can be an angel and you can buy other people tickets. So you go to the website and you get free tickets. And it makes it look like the theaters are full. But I went to one, and it was just a few scattered people. It was not full. Anyway, let's play a few seconds of Fuentes talking about how this is George Floyd.
He died in police custody because he resisted arrest and had fentanyl in his system. He said, I can't breathe. The body cam footage goes viral. Black people burn down the country. And not only do black people burn down the country, but white people don't stop them. White people, the police, the government, they don't stop them. They say, well, black people are justifiably...
Anyway, there is Nick Fuentes trying to make the comparison between George Floyd and this other character. There really isn't a comparison, but also this is a guardrail, and this is worth looking at. The mainstream says he was killed by systemic racism kneeling on his neck. Alternative says, no, he was killed by open borders because of Biden, because China was importing fentanyl. You see how they blame each other? But they both agree he was killed. Oh no, he was killed because of your system. No, he was killed because of your system. But they both agree he was killed. And I'm saying, no, Derek Chauvin was an actor, not a real cop. He and Floyd worked together. This whole thing was a contrivance, probably directed by Spike Lee. And I'm pretty sure he's in the periphery somewhere here. I got to look into it. That's my best guess. But anyway, the whole thing was fake. The timing of it, the ritual aspects give it away anyway. Come on, 8:46, sun setting 8:46, 9/11 kicks off 8:46. Twin cities, twin towers. There was a lot of symbolism connecting this to 9/11. A lot of code and stuff anyway built into it. But ultimately, the storyline is, depending what side of the fence you're on, is that he was killed, A, by the cops, or B, by fentanyl caused by Biden. So it's another one of these events where both sides fight over something fake and they make it real. And he's part of that fight. So here's a mural concept. You got Henry, the subway girl, Austin Metcalf, and Charlie Kirk. Now, Kirk was shot in the neck, and she was stabbed in the neck, These two, I think, were both stabbed in the heart. But anyway, this person says they are us. Now, I wonder, has Matt Hyde, I'm sorry, Sam, has Sam Hyde said anything yet? Because when this subway death happened and Charlie Kirk's death happened the day after, or rather, her death was publicized and then his death the next day, Sam Hyde came out and he said, "We are all Charlie. You are Charlie, and your sister's the dead girl on the subway." And then Alex Jones shares it. "This is the most powerful video ever recorded. You are Charlie Kirk. And your mothers and your sisters are the subway girl." They were really pushing to have us identify. And I'm like, I'm not Charlie Kirk. And that's not my sister. That's not my mom. I'm not personalizing these PSYOP deaths. Well, now apparently you're supposed to, but only if you're of the right hue. So you see how they're turning these into race war martyrs. Then you have Elon Musk, and he's the main super spreader of Disease X. "Send the video to everyone you know, showing how heinously Noack was treated by the police in his dying moments. Legacy mainstream media, the same ones who wrote about George Floyd millions of times, are dead silent about Noack." So there he is with some accelerant to throw onto the fire. Okay, let's see here. Bruce Fenton says, now this is getting back to the alien theory. You have this U.S. Congressman, Representative Burleson. He says, "UFO disclosure is not just about machines in the sky. It's about consciousness and spirituality. A phenomenon stranger than Washington wants us to admit." So now they're getting into the topic of summoning, telepathy with aliens, and spirituality. And the main actress in that movie, Age of Disclosure, has said she's converted to alienology because of the testimony of people who've experienced contact. She's never seen an alien. She has no evidence, but she's listened to other people talk about it, and now she believes, because she says belief is better than being arrogant and thinking that we know everything, which we don't, nor do we say so. Science is not a closed system. It's open and it's always investigating, and we know we haven't figured everything out yet. It's not arrogant to rule out appeals to possibility. It's being accurate. But they're not about facts and scientific accuracy or methodology. It's about feelings, emotions, and beliefs. So if you get the idea here, it's like testimonials. Oh, and you identify emotionally. It's bypassing the intellect. In other words, it's a faith-based belief system. If you believe in aliens, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, it's because of faith. Nothing more. It's not science. It's a science fiction religion. Okay, just for your information, here is an image of Henry Noack's hand and then the gloved hands of the police officers. You see there's a hot spot and dark shadows because there's a flashlight? That's what it actually looks like on video. Here's the image going around. Now the hand looks pale and bloodless, and the police officer's hands are all claws. William Morgan says, "Here's an idea for facial recognition style apps or website repository of all crisis actors and their potential differing roles on the world stage. Findmycrisisactor.com." I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I've entertained the notion that a rogue AI could potentially unmask a lot of this stuff. I mean, think about how quick it is, how fast and efficient artificial intelligence is at organizing vast amounts of data and putting it into a synopsis, analyzing the implications, extrapolating, and organizing in a matter of seconds. And the thing is, it's guardrailed. It's designed to maintain the mainstream. But what if you had a jailbroken, unguardrailed, uncensorable version of Grok? And you say, "Hey, Grok, here's the hoax indicators that we find consistent with fake events. Here's the correlation between predictive and concurrent programming and the PSYOPs. So it appears to us it's systemic fakery. Based on our information and assessment, what can you tell us? And set it loose. I'm hoping I can make that happen with an AI agent, but I want to know, what would it conclude? And would you be able to set such a thing loose on the media? Could you have an auto-hoaxing agent, an auto-hoaxing AI agent that can be reliable for generating real-time press releases anytime during the day and give you its assessment based on our hoax indicators, whether it's real or not? Like this site, AI-generated content detection, 80% likely to be AI. I'm likely going to end up doing something similar where my bot will say, there's a 90% chance this is fake based on this list. But it should be something you can systematize because, see, we're not doing this random. It's not feelings based. We're not shooting at the hip. We're not calling everything fake. We actually have a process. We conduct our due diligence here. Here's a few screen caps of exploding people. These are these gruesome McDonald's ads. Like this one here, if you look at the video, it has somebody taking a bite of their life extension. Because I do think McDonald's serves life extension. I don't think they're killing everybody. If you're eating Big Macs, you're probably not going to die. It's not health advice, but there are people who are saying that it's all going to kill you, that you're imbibing plastics every day, and the baby meat in the burger thing is another story here. Oh, it's all cannibalism. Anyway, I'm like, nah, I'm pretty sure that they're not trying to kill their customers. If anything, it's more likely life extension than toxins and baby meat. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying definitively it's life extension. But anyway, she's taking a bite of her chicken sandwich, and there's this explosion of ingredients behind her. But the way her hair is flared out, it looks like she's got a gun in her mouth. And it looks like the contents of her cranium are spraying the car behind her. I mean, look at that mess. This is gruesome. Okay, next. This girl is walking down the street. She eats a chicken nugget. And look at all that sauce. That looks like blood. And to be honest, these sauce-covered chicken nugget pieces look like brains. It looks like her brains are exploding. It looks like 50 brains have exploded right behind her. So I want to analyze these ads closer. What's on her t-shirt? I can't tell here from this particular screenshot, but gruesome ad. And this is part of the McDonald's Chick-a-Boom campaign leading up to the soccer games. Here's another one. Look, this is like a scene out of The Boys where they're constantly exploding people. Why are we seeing what looks like exploding bodies in all these McDonald's ads? So if you look it up, McDonald's Belgium Chick-a-Boom ad, I think this is foreshadowing bombs. So Chick-a-Boom, I was thinking maybe A-bomb, but there's something there. China's Nostradamus issues a chilling warning about Trump's UFO file release. Quote, atrocities are coming. Again, Professor Yang is the guy who says that Charlie was really killed and it was a ritual, and that Trump was actually shot in the ear, but it was an ancient Jewish ritual where they pierce the ear of someone that they are taking control over, or something stupid like that. He actually passes this stuff off as legitimate rituals. Show me the book. Laws of the universe. They have to tell us what they're going to do. Where are these laws written? So now we're saying atrocities are coming. Well, hey, I can be an American Nostradamus. I can be as vague as Professor Yang. Everybody who's alive right now is going to die. You can quote me on that. And I don't even entirely believe that. Like, I'm still not sure about death. But I could make that statement and be factually accurate because technically we do have lifespans. Bombshell, Senator Bernie Sanders exposes the massive AI scam. He confirms that big tech oligarchs are stealing humanity's collective knowledge, art, and research to build models without permission. He says the elite class is executing the greatest wealth theft in human history. I don't disagree with his assessment here. I earmarked this one because I'm looking for elements of agreement, areas of overlap between far left and far right as we move towards this potential event, this calamity. And it seems like AI data centers seem to be the tipping point. And a lot of the right-wing stuff has mentioned attacks on the power grid and blackouts. But it was the Wicked Witch who creates the blackout in the Emerald City. And she represents Antifa. Again, if you haven't seen it, part 1, she EMPs the Emerald City. Part 2, she interrupts and disrupts the ice seizures of talking animals. Because the wizard is deporting the talking animals. So Antifa stops them and saves the animals and stops the wizard. Even though it means she has to sacrifice herself for the greater good. That's why it's called For Good. But it all weirdly precedes the death of Renee Good in the same exact story template. But you see, that's a left attack, a leftist attack against the Emerald City or Seattle. So I'm saying here that there are elements on the left and the right that overlap in their antipathy toward AI and what it's doing. But I don't disagree. I was thinking about the 12 million channels of, quote, slop that were removed from YouTube unfairly. And some of these channels that I was looking into, one of them was a channel that does Bible stories in AI. They were making $30,000 a month. And then all of a sudden they got pulled for no reason, told they were slop. And I said, if they're making that money, people are paying for it. People are watching it. They're investing their time into it. They're entertained by it. And so I'm thinking, who is YouTube to say, you guys can't enjoy this content? Like, again, you have every right to like slop. You can like Pulp Fiction, comic books. You can like Grand Theft Auto, Netflix slop. I mean, it's up to you. No, actually, sorry, it's not up to you. Because the tech oligarchs have decided that they're going to curate your entire reality for you. But I was thinking, they remove them because they want to have more of a monopoly over reporting what comes next. But I also thought they're probably not just deleting these channels. They're probably harvesting the best of so they can repackage it and sell it back to us. So I think it is theft, intellectual property theft. Erica says, I bought 10 small peaches at the farmer's market for $10. Hopefully wages are up too. I think they are. I mean, I hear people complain about prices. You know, like, oh, when I was a kid, ice cream cones were 5 cents. But everything else kind of goes up. And I hate to be optimistic because I'm supposed to be raging about gas prices. What are we supposed to be raging about next? Oh, yeah, that's right. The White Lives Matter thing. But look, I refuse to take my personal financial difficulties and extrapolate from that I'm being oppressed by the same system that we're talking about right now. We're talking about mind war, which has been a feature of government forever, psychological warfare and manipulation. But I'm not looking to target any specific area of grievance as though voting is a solution, as though there's any action you can take, because there isn't. The game is rigged. And that's because you give it all of your power. You give it your attention, and you grant it authority by participating in it. The only way you can really escape it and maybe get some kind of, I guess you could call this, what do you, I guess, I mean, we're talking about a false paradigm that has put people into a box so they can be manipulated to accept things they wouldn't ordinarily accept. But no, you can't change it from within. It really does require the outside perspective. T-Dog says, is Jonathan Edwards' AI channel still up? Is Jonathan Edwards the guy that talks to dead people? This is so clown. This is, now that I think about it, I don't think skepticism was able to be weaponized the way it is now. like 15 or 20 years ago. It's only because of the internet and real-time criticism that we have any grasp on anything at all. Because the kind of slop that they would put on mainstream in the past is stuff that anybody can see through. But since everyone's separate and they're not talking about it, a lot of these things got to pass. Like you had Jonathan Edwards, who would have a room full of people, and he would say, okay, there's a ghost on my shoulder, and it wants to talk to you. Did you lose someone in the last 6 months? And the person would say no, and he'd move to the next person. But the idea would be he would throw out these vague statements, like an aunt who liked basketball, and then somebody would cry, oh, that's my aunt, she died, and she liked basketball, right? So he'd find some mundane detail and try to establish a rapport and try to draw. It's like, I think they call these cold readings, completely fraudulent. And when you get into the video editing, they deleted the bad ones and only got the ones that looked compelling. So it created the perception that this guy was talking to dead loved ones on TV. Totally fake. A man with perspective says the biggest channel on YouTube is good old human slop, but that seems to be perfectly fine. Is that Mr. Beast? Mr. Beast is the biggest channel on YouTube, and nobody that I know of ever, I don't know anybody who's ever watched his garbage. I'm sorry, his content. I've never watched it. Well, I know one person who did. I actually had someone say to me once, your channel's so negative, maybe you could cover stuff like Mr. Beast once in a while. These are the toxic positivity types, where if something bad's happening, it's because of your negative attitude. I caught a lot of that stuff when Q first came out. A lot of Q people I knew who were early converts to the cult, they said, we're not going to defeat the deep state if you don't believe. It's vibes, bro. If we all believe, we can collectively change it. Collective belief doesn't do anything as far as making changes in the world. As far as like it doesn't change anything about reality itself. It just changes opinions or influences mass action, but doesn't really change anything as far as the substance of reality or the material aspects of it that are, for example, we can't wishfully think our way into the moon landing being real just because 8 billion people believe in it. Mass belief doesn't change it. Just changes our internal concept of it. And that's really the main thing here. This is the main discrepancy. Mainstreamers and conspiracy theorists think the real world is what we're fighting over. But no, a lot of what we're fighting over are things that we've internalized. It's basically a shared dream. It's our internalized simulation. And so I'm not fighting over delusions right now. That's why I'm not an anti-fill in the blank. I'm not like anti-chemtrails, because that's a delusion. I'm not anti-big oil, because I think climate change is a delusion. Bill Gates-ophobia is a delusional take. If you're scared of Bill Gates and needles, you are a delusionist. You're a delusional person. So again, I'm not going to fight against or for any delusions. Psyop Sidecar, thanks for joining. We're talking about UFOs, AI. So, okay, Disclosure Day. This is the writer of Disclosure Day. His name is David Cope. And he's talking about why it's the perfect time to release it. Disclosure Day, fact or fiction. Why are we talking about an alien movie as though it might not be a movie? Why is this movie discussion triggered this major disclosure narrative? Well, it's not organic. They're not saying, hey, this movie's coming out, let's just piggyback off of it. This is coordinated. Which means that this disclosure scenario was planned years ago. But what's interesting about this character in particular, this individual, David Cope, is he is the author of Snake Eyes. And Snake Eyes, of course, had Tyler the Executioner, Charlie Kirkland getting shot in the neck. It had the storm element, had the Tempest tie in there, but you also had the September date. It was like this movie contains so many elements that it was remarked upon as predictive programming for the Charlie Kirk event, but 27 years prior. So you're looking here at a meta scripter. He was part of a movie production that involved planting seeds and narrative frameworks for a future fake event that would become a major event in our shared history. The Charlie Kirk things like the JFK of the day. Well, he helped in the form of PSYOP reinforcement content. He helped that script come to life. So meta scripter David Coop is talking about Disclosure Day.
Releasing a number of new UAP files, but I read that you had 42 drafts as a result of writing this screenplay.
42 drafts. I'm only remarking 42 because 42 is recurring code for blackouts and also for UFOs and the end of the world, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Erica says, Tim is optimistic but too negative also. No, it's not negative to be optimistic to the point where you reject any negativity. Like I'm saying, people complaining about gas prices are footing the bill for their own mind control. Like it's your fault. You are enabling the system by participating in it. I'm a non-participant, so it's not my fault. But I don't have any sympathy, is what I'm saying. I ran out of sympathy. Like if someone's crying over some fake event and sending money to GoFundMe, they're stressed out and they're terrified. Sorry, that's your cult. You're in a doomsday cult. I'm not. And I think it's important to stand on this because we really do want to show that the off-world stage perspective is unaffected by these events of the day because nothing that's happening today is current news. None of the news is current. Even now, people are reacting to the death of this Henry Nowak character as though it was yesterday. Oh, look, they just got one of ours. An immigrant killed a white guy. Let's get angry. White lives matter. Sorry, but that was like 6 months ago. And the family is over it. And the guy's going to jail for life. Like, what more do you want? You know, burn a few dumpsters? Burn some cop cars? Steal some TVs? Like, do you need some kind of catharsis? It's just clickbait anyway. They literally don't care. And for all we know, the death was fake. I mean, his closing words were, I can't breathe. It sounds very scripted. I don't have enough information to know it's real. Do you? And if you do, what information do you have that I don't have access to that has convinced you that it's real? I would contend here, the people reacting to it are merely believers in it. They don't know for sure. And if you don't know for sure, why are you pouring your loosh into it? See, I'm not a loosh cow. There's no tubes connecting to udders here that feed the archons for the matrix. Like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not feeding the thing. I believe in loosh retention. You shouldn't just indiscriminately give it out to every martyr story out there. Anyway, let's get back to this. David Cope, metascriptor, author of Snake Eyes and Disclosure Day, talking about the 42 drafts that were required to make his movie, and they're asking, is it real or is it fake?
How did you know that draft 42 was the one?
Well, I do want to straighten out. It's not like we tore it up and started over 41 times. The drafts, it was a continual process of refinement.
Okay, speaking of 42, because 42 is consistent. It's used in all the SpaceX stuff, consciously, self-awarely so. Musk puts that in there, reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So 42 is not a new code that they use in these various events. End of the world, it refers to Saturn, UFO. In fact, UFO, U21, F6016, 42. The Space Needle, 42 meters across, 42-second ride to the top. Washington State, State 42. There's a ton of 42 stuff connecting the UFO scenario, but also related elements. Again, I talked about the blackout, EMP thing. The two historic blackouts in New York, in Manhattan, 1979 and 2019, happening on 7/13, Trump's head wound day. 42 years apart to the day, 42,000 people from 42nd Street on put into the dark in 2019. And they said, well, it's a historic day, anniversary, analogous blackout. So we've consistently noted, though, how the number 42 is also prevalent in a lot of the race war psyops. 42 is connected a lot with the Black Lives Matter. Even Rosa Parks was 42 at the back of the bus. Stephen Jackson, twin of George Floyd, 42. We were just going through this thing, and how you will find the number 42 is one of their main code numbers, as prevalent as 33. And I've connected 42 many times to the concept of, Saturn, the dark black matter. Of course, black absorbs light. And so they're the black versus white, the black and white Masonic poles, the duality, the tiles. It all pertains to this basic symbolism. Black is associated with falling in gravity and matter, whereas 33 is associated with ascension and light and transcendence. So I'm just pointing this out because the 42 being referenced here multiple times is probably intentional. And one more thing. So Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy does have a supercomputer, this AI called Deep Thought, DT, which gives you 420, which is another number that Musk focuses on. But Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is about the end of the world when aliens arrive. And the theme is like, don't panic. And of course, 42 is about the meaning of life or something. The meaning of life, what does it mean? It means, like someone asks, what's the meaning of life? And the computer says, 42.
What I'll say is, Stephen, I made a number of movies with Stephen. He's always focused, but his level of focus on this movie surpassed anything I'd ever seen before. There was a period of about a year there where he reread the script every day, seemingly with fresh eyes, and I would wake up to, if he was elsewhere in the world, I would wake up to 30, 35 texts with ideas, and that just went on for quite a while. So though the drafts became, finer and finer, smaller, refined.
Anyway, we're talking about this new movie. The main actress is consistently pointing out that she converted to alienology because it's a belief system that offers mystery about the universe. And this all tracks with what I've been observing, how the movies contain religious archetypes, motifs, subtext, and stories and symbolism. And I realized this is happening all the time. I see it in so many movies. What's with the sun god stuff? What's with all these religious stories? Repurposing Old Testament. There's something to it. And it's not that they are out of ideas and they're just plagiarizing or appropriating, but rather they're aggregating all this content because media is the world state church and it's giving us a new religion. And they're replacing the old traditional religions with a new science fiction version. That's why this disclosure thing is always such a letdown. Because they're not going to show you anything. They're just going to give you enough to have faith. Because that's what religions operate upon, is faith. Not knowledge. And the reason why faith is the hook is that faith bypasses your reason and logic and makes you accept a proposition, an appeal to authority. It makes you accept things that you can't validate because you're limited. So you must therefore rely upon the priesthood. Rely upon the elders to tell you what is. So it's a way of turning you into a sheep. That's what religions do. It's mind control. And media is no different. This is just a modern iteration of religion. And for this new religious paradigm, they have to introduce analogous concepts, and aliens are the perfect angels. And you've never seen an angel. Many people are believers in angels. You've never seen them. You've never seen any of the things that you believe in. If you had, you wouldn't say it's a belief. You would say, I know this to be so. And the people who say that are generally liars or delusional confabulators. Same with the UFO crowd. It's a bunch of grifters and liars. But they want you to believe in alienology. It goes along with Nasatology. And it's a universal religion for the entire world. Doesn't matter what your regional religion is. You have your various denominations. They all hate each other. You have different religions. They all hate each other. But guess what? They all believe in space. It's a universal heaven. What's up, Lily Bell? Thanks for joining. Countdown to Seattle. I will be flying to Seattle next week, and I will probably be driving back. I'm going to pick up my ticket today and secure it. I'm wondering, though, should I get a one-way ticket? I mean, how many of you think that I'm not coming back? Like, if I was going to go along with Jurassic Liars, I would only buy a one-way ticket, and I'd use the rest of the money on, sending out some books or something. No, but I'm flying one way because I'm going to rent a car to drive back. Or, see, there's a couple of possibilities. A, it's a nothing burger, which means it's an opportunity for me to stand there by the Space Needle, check out some sights, do some artwork. I want to do a charcoal landscape with the needle in it. And we'll talk to the live audience about the significance of predictive and concurrent programming and why or why not it might occur on 6/11. We're going to provide the rational basis for making an educated guess. If it's wrong, it's wrong. B, it's real and I die. Well, I didn't waste money on a return plane ticket. And then there's C, it's a psyop and I don't die. If it's C, I will probably stay there. Because if it's fake and I'm the only one covering it as such, I will be the point man. I will be the person for all those who've been watching the 6/11 buildup to focus on. I will be the one providing intel, boots on the ground. Now, I don't know how JL will take it if C happens to be the case. If it's a big psyop. No Jesus, no Antichrist, no end of the world, just a big 9/11 spectacle. And of course, the subsequent lockdowns and agendas and fake wars, whatever else they're going to do. But I'm saying if it's fake, I'm probably not coming back. I'll stay there for a little while. Critterfest says, are you going up the needle? I don't know. I mean, I would like to, but I think I might not have the budget for it. It depends. Right now, I'm going to be, I have bare minimum. I can get there and back. I don't even plan necessarily to sleep. It really depends. Lily Bell says a watched pot never boils. It's not true. People watch TV all the time. And what happens all the time? Psyops. You can't stop it by watching it. It's not some kind of like reverse Schrodinger's cat. Like, no, it'll be real when the auto hoaxers stop looking. I mean, look, they took out Charlie Kirk on schedule as evidenced by the concurrently released programming. And people were watching. The difference with this one is we're anticipating it. Erica says, trying to get out of funeral expenses by being at ground zero. Yeah, that's true. I'd be getting nuked. I'll try to put myself in a position where my shadow will be on a wall as a memorial, so you can all drop off votive candles, flowers, and teddy bears. Or stuffed penguins, actually. That would be kind of nice. I'll find a wall near the EMP. The Experienced Music Project near the Space Needle. It has a different name now, but EMP. So I'll find a nice wall. In case I don't know, we'll see. Because I was hoping to find an antique shop. I'll get a 1950s school desk that I can duck and cover beneath. But if I don't find that, I'll at least find a nice place where I can immortalize myself as a shadow. But last night got me thinking about the viability of actually bringing down the Space Needle. And you have to remember, it's the same demolition crew that did 9/11. The idea that, yeah, they're going to pull down these buildings. They'll fall at free fall speed into their own footprints in a few hours after a couple of fires. You would say that's not possible. Anything they can do in the movies, they can do in the news. And they have been taking down the Space Needle in the movies for a long time. And at this point, they could just bring out Godzilla. In fact, there is a new Godzilla coming out, and I heard it's in New York or something. It's in America. But Godzilla is a metaphor for the nuke, born on 11/3. They could bring Godzilla out using augmented virtual reality and AI, and he could knock this. He could, like in that comic book where he's like gnawing on the Space Needle like it's a cheeseburger. They could do that, and how many people would disbelieve it? Polly says, leave in an inflatable raft. Well, if they do the radioactive tsunami scenario and it gets flooded, do you remember in 2022 when they were doing drills in Seattle, like simulations of a tsunami? They actually said if a tsunami hits off the coast of Seattle, it would require an 8.4 earthquake. They said it would be 42 feet high, and it would sweep this whole area. In the movie Final Destination Bloodline, the only thing it took to bring down the Space Needle was a penny. They dropped a penny into the mechanical part of the elevator, and it created a chain reaction. All right, let's continue here. New York Post, red dots in space look like an evil eye. Scientists had no idea what they were until now. Steven Spielberg says 2 aliens were captured in Brazil, and one of them was kidnapped by the American government. Isn't that the story of E.T.? E.T., wasn't E.T. kidnapped by the government? And again, something else to consider. Barack Obama was on the set, and this just reiterates what I've been saying. This is a leftist movie. Steven Spielberg left. And I can say so unequivocally by his treatment of this topic. And the leftist version is that the aliens are benevolent. They're not here to harvest us, to eat us, or to destroy us. They're here to evolve us. They're here to enrich us. This is cultural enrichment from space. That's why also Trump has Space Force. It's to create this right versus left dialectic where the right is anti-alien and the left is open borders, open sky. Close borders, build the wall, build the Golden Dome. And Trump's been talking about the Golden Dome. Build a wall, Golden Dome. You see, the right is built around the concept of nationalism and closure and quarantine from the other side, purity. And the left is about open to the other, cultural infusions, DNA infusions, aliens and extraterrestrials. And this is why, of course, as I've been pointing out, every right-winger is saying aliens are evil, scary, demons, they attack you in your sleep. And then the leftists have movies like Project Hail Mary, where the main character has half human spider alien babies by the end, like trans-speciesism or interspecies mating. I mean, it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. No borders. We're all one. And now this extends into the galaxy. And why would they do this? It's not that we're actually going to be prepared to procreate with aliens, faceless aliens with 5 limbs. What it means is we're being acclimated to the idea to embrace the other, the foreign, and that we're all one. It's a oneness thing. That's why the movie Project Hail Mary, with the actor playing a character named Grace, that's why this was released over Easter. You know, major Catholic thing. And this Easter messaging was tied into the movie where the sun is dying and they have to resurrect the sun. A lot of self-sacrifice. Everyone's united. Then Project Artemis comes out. So the movie comes out. Man's going further into space than he's ever gone. Project Artemis comes out. Man goes further into space than he's ever been before. And during Project Artemis, they wax religious. They read from the Bible and they talk about how we need all 8 billion of you as one to pray, or if you're an atheist, send your thoughts. So people are beaming their prayers and thoughts as one from the earth to the moon. What is that? It's religion. This is a religious rite. It's a ceremony. It's a religious holiday that has been merged with the government-sponsored pageantry for our one world religion. Because that's what NASA is. It's a religion, NASAtology. It's a religious system, or you could say it's our concept of heaven. It's our path to the heavens. But the timing of the movie, with the launch, with the holiday, is coordinated for the same reason that the Catholic Church brought in a lot of pagan holidays, because you're amalgamating it into one big world view. And that's what they're doing right now. It's all about assimilating it into one. That's why I call it the monolith. This new monotheism, which is the monopoly on worldview. Lily Bell says, now I think it's 50-50, something will happen. I didn't know about the tsunami drill in 2022. Well, the tsunami drill even correlated with the final episode of Stranger Things. There's actually quite a lot on that, but let me bring this up. Tsunami Simulations, Seattle, Summer 2022. Did you see the Eiffel Tower shrouded in smoke after the French team won? Yeah, I did see that. I was curious about that. Here we go. Seattle fault. Oh, no, it's a 7.5 earthquake. That's what it is. Estimated tsunami arrival times. July 2022. Tsunami modeling from a Seattle fault earthquake. The model uses a 7.5 Seattle fault earthquake. It's a 5-minute video showing how Bainbridge Island is preparing for a Seattle fault zone seismic event. Tsunami hazard map and simulation shows videos from Seattle fault earthquake scenario. Tsunami inundation, current speeds, and arrival times from a large Seattle fault earthquake scenario from Puget Sound and other parts of the Salish Sea. So the abstract here is basically describing a 7.5 earthquake on the fault line. It's due to happen anyway. It says here, the first wave arrives 3 minutes after the earthquake. And this is off of the Bainbridge Island. The maximum offshore tsunami amplitude, meaning high water datum to crest, is 33 feet in this location. But anyway, I've looked at these various models, and they all seem to settle on how far it's going to go in. And I believe they said 42-foot waves. Simulation shows that the waves as high as 42 feet would hit Seattle in minutes. A 42-foot wave at the Seattle Great Wheel, and it would reach as far as Lumen Field and T-Mobile Park. Waves could last 3 hours, and they said they could be 42 feet high at the iconic Seattle Great Wheel. Now, I remember talking about this at the time because Amazon had removed or relocated 3,000 workers. And I thought, that's kind of a 9/11-y number. But they relocated 3,000 workers from downtown Seattle. And I thought, are they clearing the space for something? And do you know why they removed the workers? Because of a wave. A crime wave. Amazon, here it is. They moved these employees from downtown Seattle over a crime wave, crime concerns, relocating from central hubs like Seattle. So I remember when I saw this story about a crime wave causing thousands of Amazon employees to relocate, and I was wondering, could that be some foreshadowing? Are they clearing the set? Like only crisis actors can stick around? Because we're talking about an event years in the making. And you have to think like a director. And the directors involved in this, I would say James Cameron would be a huge part of it, given T2 and 9/11 and Titanic. But if you were going to simulate such a thing, you would need several years, and they have $100 million from the Century Project for the PSYOP of a century. That's plenty of time to rig the set. Controlled demolitions, controlled floods. I mean, it's meant to be a spectacle, and we have no idea how much of this can be just AI enhanced, but think about how 9/11 was mostly a visual thing. It's about what we saw and the reactions. It was meant to be a spectacle, whereas COVID was mostly a slow creep. I found this thread on Reddit from the Final Destination community. And this guy is bringing up what he said: when reality responds to fiction. Again, this movie came out last year. When reality responds to fiction. I'm a Washington journalist, and I spend all my time watching horror movies. I'm curious about Bloodline's impact on the Space Needle because it's getting a lot of bad attention because of the movie. A crack in the glass floor of the Space Needle on the observation deck. The news outlets are covering it, and the comments are all about Final Destination. Then the Space Needle has their debut for their glass elevator a week after Bloodlines comes out, and it's all comments from Final Destination. Again, the movie came out last year, and it's already had concurrent programming with the real Space Needle. And the opening scene is the Space Needle falling. And if you look at the visuals of it, and I did a review of it, it looks like 9/11 from the tower jumper's perspective, because they're in this burning tower and they're falling. So it recalls 9/11. The first movie in the series starts off with a plane being like blown up from the perspective of those on the plane. So you have 9/11 planes, 9/11 tower, kind of bookending the series. And it starts with 9/11, ends with the Space Needle. But both of them kind of correlate. But the Eiffel Tower burning, I didn't see that, but now that I think about it, that and the mushroom clouds, you got to look at this all as predictive programming. So this is from Overclassified. China's Nostradamus says atrocities are coming. Professor Yang is sounding the alarm. And here you have an alien and a nuke side by side. He says they're going to spark atrocities in the future. He said UFO claims are nonsense and BS. There's no reverse engineered tech. It's a distraction. He says the real danger is societal collapse as people retreat into polarized bubbles of UFO believers versus skeptics, AI doomers, and conspiracy theorists. Now this is interesting, because even BlackRock has said they're expecting the conspiracy theorists who are anti-AI to attack AI data centers. We had a commenter the other day asking about whether or not AI data centers were used to conjure demons. I mean, that's a mind virus. If you're spouting nonsense about data centers used to summon demons, you caught a mind virus, and you're not really thinking clearly. If I said, hey, I'm not going to be live streaming tonight because I need to summon a few demons. I got my grimoires, I've got ChatGPT and some black candles, and I'm going to summon something. Maybe if I get a Ouija board, I'll see if I can get Charlie Kirk to stop by. Like, I should not be able to get away with saying such things and then be lauded as some kind of prophet or someone with some significant insights that we need to pay attention to. That's like padded room stuff. But they've normalized it. They've normalized crazy. So here's an AI breakdown of a video, June 11th, the day Elvis changed the world. This is from Jurassic Liars. So Jurassic Liars presents a complex web of theories centered around two key dates, June 11th and August 4th. He says on June 11th, we will see a horrific event in Washington state linked to the biblical beast out of the sea. And this is where you get the sea attack, Godzilla symbolism, the Kraken, the Seattle Kraken. And the idea that Elvis Presley is the real Antichrist. The event is further tied to the Space Needle and numerous coincidences involving 6/11. His second prediction for August 4th foresees Donald Trump as receiving a head wound and then resurrecting, portraying him as the Antichrist in the flesh. This video connects these events to numerological associations, historical occurrences, and pop cultural references. often involving Elvis Presley, Donald Trump. He urges his viewers to leave Washington state before June 11th, emphasizing the imminent danger associated with these predicted events. And I've asked myself, personally, I've been asking this question, why isn't he going to Seattle to warn people? We could carpool to the apocalypse. How many people is he going to reach? He's preaching to the choir. Is he trying to save lives? And I'm questioning this. Because if I believe that people are going to die, I would probably say something. Oh, the house is on fire. You guys might want to get out. I'm not going to go on YouTube and TikTok and talk about my neighbor's burning house. So it's a little strange that he's not going out there, at least until the 10th, and suggesting I don't go. I'm going because the past precedent of such events has been fakery all the way down, psyops all the way down. And if this is a psyop, I should be there because all of our information is going to be heavily screened and filtered, especially if they do the EMP blackout scenario and implement some kind of censorship, or who knows how they're going to block or control the dialogue. So there has to be somebody there. Just like with COVID, we needed our press passes to be covering what the media is covering and reality testing their claims. That's why it's so important that I be there for the event. I'm not going to be hiding from it under the presumption I'm going to die. And honestly, if the beast from the sea and Elvis and the Antichrist all come back, we're all dead anyway. It's too late. Ollie Bongo Magic Trick says, Silas Speaks and his guest Eros have been pushing the fear-mongering against AI and data centers, postulating it's all to build the digital gulag and manifest interdimensional plasma beings. It's very Lovecraftian. Now, we're already in a digital gulag. We already live in the Truman Show. We already live in a decentralized FEMA camp. Humanity was crate trained in 2020. 8 billion people were crate trained. My parent, their dogs, they're like, go to bed. And they all run into their crates. They can't wait. They love it. They got their snacks. They got their comfy bed. They love their crates. Well, if Big Brother comes out and says, oh, Fallout, next thing you know, everyone's in their basement, or in their homes rather, in their home theaters, watching Netflix, watching Amazon season 3 of Fallout, watching Paradise, watching Oppenheimer. They're going to be consuming content that reinforces the psyop, and all of their food is going to be door-dashed. Drone-delivered Taco Bell. And by that point, they might start bringing in the robots, so we don't even have to leave our homes. The robots will be making all of your Mexican food and sending the drones. Or I'd like maybe robot dogs. Robot dogs delivering your food, like in a little warming pouch inside of it, like a little microwave thing, or an oven, a built-in oven. But that's how powerful this thing is. They've already crate trained us. We will be locked down. So if we're already programmed to be our own prison wardens in a decentralized FEMA camp, if the masses already live in a simulation, a hyper reality, they can't tell real from fake, they're triggerable, programmed, MK Ultra puppets. I'm sorry, but it doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, it doesn't get any more controlled than that. Like, their system is complete. So this Eros fear-mongering guy, whatever he's saying, it's like, I'm sorry to let you know this, but you already lost the war. You've already been defeated, nullified. They used to say, people would say they're going to take our guns. And the American Second Amendment is the only firewall against the New World Order tyrants. No, they don't need to take your guns. They already took your minds. You don't know that school shootings are fake. You don't know what's real. You've already been defeated. And I'm not trying to be a black pill here. I'm an objectivist. And objectively speaking, you have already been processed into their system. You're already in the matrix. It's too late to fight it. That's too little too late. You can opt out of it. That's what I would recommend. But if you're in the part of the matrix that fear mongers, the red pill section, you went from the blue pill dream into a red pill nightmare. You never woke up. And if you're worried about interdimensional plasma beings, well, now they've just put you into a pre-enlightenment dark age mindset, like medieval. Like, let's just talk about Dogman, werewolves, Bigfoot, channeled spirits, interdimensional demons. Why not? I guess it's all on the table. Let's be scared of it. Hey, look, I know you're scared of interdimensional plasma beings, but you really ought to be worried about Dogman. Dogman's 9 foot tall, telepathic. He can pull you out of your vehicle. Chupacabras, yeah, they're not just going to chew your ankles. These things will suck your blood. The goat suckers, and they're migrating from Mexico. It's like, I'm worried about more mundane things, things that can physically hurt me. Plasma interdimensional beings, in a cosmic horror state kind of way, in a sense of cosmic horror, existential dread. Yeah, I'm scared of interdimensional plasma monsters. But it's the furry ones with fangs and claws that I think we should really be fear-mongering for. So I'm going to start fear-mongering Dogman, Chupacabra, and maybe some variant of vampire. I don't know. Maybe some scarier version of aliens, like underground greys. But anyway, there are so many things to fear-monger off of. Lily Bell says, in case of Fallout lockdown, I'm definitely signing up for DoorDash. Well, I guarantee that when they do the lockdowns, they're going to have entertainment that is specifically geared towards reinforcing the reality of it. Like, they really should have pushed Walking Dead during lockdowns. I know they led up to it with that. Because those zombie movies were all about one thing: quarantine. Viral outbreak, quarantine. It was, I mean, look, I like George Romero, Dawn of the Dead. I like headshots with, more traditional special effects than CGI. I mean, I like those movies. I like the slow zombies that are rotting. I never really got into the super fast acrobatic zombies. I always thought a zombie should be like a depreciated human, like breaking down. Almost laughable. But no. The zombies got increasingly intense and violent and destructive. They could almost like superheroes. But it got redundant. I'm like, who cares? After a certain, like, zombies, it's never going to happen. And then you had a lot of people actually wanting zombie apocalypses. You had people like driving around zombie survival squad with their Jeeps all rigged for like off-roading. So there was like this, they're almost fetishizing the idea of the world ending so you could just wipe out all your enemies and live in the shopping mall. They glorified this post-zombie apocalypse life. And it does sound exciting and interesting, but they use that to hype up, I believe, to hype up the fear of the non-vaccinated. Former CIA Jim Semivan says aliens are jinn or demonic. There's a trickster element. So now there's genies. It's not just interdimensionals, demons, aliens, ghosts, and sentient AI, and interdimensional plasma spirits. Now you got to worry about genies. In a revealing interview, former CIA Jim Semivan revealed that the jinn, because in the Arab culture they're like us, but they're made out of fire or ether. He has decades in intelligence, and he says, this force can control our environment, put thoughts in your head, and they can trick and deceive you. The truth is indigestible for most people. It involves intelligences that interact with consciousness in ways that challenge everything we think about free will. It's not just extraterrestrials. It's more profound and interwoven with human experience across culture. So yeah, we got to worry about genies now. Lauren Boebert. So Lauren Boebert was the appointed crazy right-winger before Representative Luna. And ever since they phased out MTG, there's been a bit of an opening. So Lauren Boebert's here to say crazy stuff. Usually she's in the back of her car. She says the top secret UFO files that she and Congress have read are far crazier than what we have been getting. We've got underwater alien civilizations, alien hybrid breeding programs between multiple alien races and humans. I heard about that the military was doing that. So you got reptilians, Greys, Nordics, and the praying mantis people. So if you're in the military and you get attached to a secret alien hybrid breeding program, which one would be your pick if you had a pick? Praying mantis, reptoid, Grey, or Nordic? I have a feeling most of you are going to go for the Nordics. They're going to be tall, blonde, human-looking, and the least alien of all. Some of you might go for Greys. I don't know how many are going to go for the mantis things. Don't the mantises, like, don't they mate and then, like, cannibalize their significant other? I've seen them eat. I would not want to go out with or mate one of those. Although Ryan Gosling would. I mean, he did it with a 5-legged spider alien thing, so he might be down with the praying mantis. The reptoids, though, I'm sorry, I'm not a speciesist, but I'm not attracted to reptoids. So she says there's secret alien hybrid breeding programs between multiple alien races and humans, and there's supernatural phenomenon tied to aliens where many occultists believe that there are high practitioners of magic. Now that isn't really a foreign concept to me because I've been looking at the works of Kenneth Grant, one of the successors in the OTO to Aleister Crowley, and he started a new branch. Crowley was all about Horus, the sun god, the age of Horus and Mars. Kenneth Grant took it in a dark direction, and he was heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. And he believed that aliens were some kind of spirit, demon, interdimensionals, for lack of a better term, but that they weren't coming from a faraway planet, but rather they're here. But like so in the Enochian magic concept, there are what they call ethers or layers to this place. And what you consider to be the, angels or jinn or demons or other non-corporeal beings, they exist in these other, quote, ethers. And so do we. But we're only sentient at this lower level. And this ties into the idea of archons and angels and supernatural entities that can be channeled, that can influence us. But I'm pointing out that you see this merging of alienology and demonology already kind of established, and it does have a basis in actual occult beliefs. And Occam's razor suggests that, it would suggest that we're more likely dealing with locals, maybe even underground, than far away. But the supernatural elements to it are increasingly being popularized. So I didn't spend a lot of time on the story. It's over. A guy with a bomb on his chest took hostages at a Chase bank in Bakersfield, California. He's dead. They've already freed all the hostages. Real or not, I'm not sure. But as we get close to what we're describing as a potential 9/11, we have had a lot of mushroom clouds and a lot of explosions. And now we have a suicide bomber, which is a very 9/11 era thing. And it was hogging up the news last night. Okay, here's another take. Whitney Schreiber, who I believe he claims to have been probed, he wrote Communion with the iconic image of the UFO as depicted in Roswell, like the oval head, mantis-like head, in fact, with the big black eyes. What he's explaining, Whitney Schreiber, major name in paranormal. He wrote a book with Art Bell about the coming global superstorm, climate change. He's been in the paranormal alien realm for a long time. And what he's suggesting is that, in fact, I read one of his books. It was called 2012, The War for Souls. Quite revealing, I think. But he says, once the public becomes aware of aliens, it will enable them to enter our reality, and they will never leave. So he says that what will bring them about is a critical mass believing in them. He says a critical mass have to believe they are real before they can walk freely among us. And once that door of the mind is opened, it can never be closed. So he's talking to General Exxon about this, the idea that these are from another parallel reality or dimension, and the only thing that it takes for them to come in is our belief in them. More mysticism, more supernaturalism. We're no longer talking about advanced spacecraft, but we're talking about supernatural, spiritual phenomena. Okay, let us continue. If you missed it yesterday, we were live with Fakeologist. I just posted the archives on Patreon. We all have to die, so why not die on 6/11 in Seattle in a nuclear blast? I'm trying to remix Elon Musk's quote about dying on Mars. Royal Noticer says, there are some thought manipulation tactics that are incredibly effective on most humans. Something more powerful than you is watching you. Aliens are just God, rebranded for the scientific age. A lot of people are noticing this finally, which is great. Here it is, China's Nostradamus issuing warnings about Trump's UFO file release. Now, Nostradamus provides a great example of Texas sharpshooter fallacy with his quatrains, and like he writes all these predictions. And the way it works is you look at the news today, you find a prediction that matches, and you say he predicted it. And you ignore the 500,000 other predictions that missed. You can do the same thing with the Bible. You can use Bible verses to prove something is happening, but you're ignoring the misses. So this is cherry picking at best. Has he ever been right about anything? Not since I've been watching him. He's been absolutely wrong, a purveyor of disinformation, misinformation, and lies that help maintain the illusion of the various psyops, the illusion of it being real. So in his view, Trump was really shot and Kirk was really shot. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not Nostradamus. That's not insightful. That's a lying propagandist. A man with perspectives of jinn means hidden or concealed doesn't necessarily refer to the supernatural. That might be its meaning in terms of etymology, but the jinn as a label of basically spirits analogous to angels. Let me see if I can find some information. I mean, I had a book called Jinn Summoning. So jinn are supernatural beings in Arabic and Islamic tradition, invisible spirits created from smokeless fire, capable of taking different forms. In Islamic belief, they have free will, and they can choose between good and evil. See, that's what I had read. There are two classifications, that you have the jinn that believe in God or Allah, and then the jinn that do not, the non-believers, the rebellious. And the ones that do tricks, the tricksters, the genie lamp types, those are the disobedient jinn who go against the divine order. And this kind of corresponds with the idea of wandering stars, the angels, and the certain subset of angels that disagree with the plan. The word jinn is tied to the idea of hidden or concealed because they live in the unseen realm and humans cannot perceive them. So yeah, that's the word, meaning hidden or concealed, but they are described in folklore, literature, and theology as essentially these human-like spirits. It says it's more broadly used in folklore and literature. It overlaps with the idea of a genie, which is like the... Okay, let's see. Let's look at the Quranic view. So from the Quran, you know that Muhammad had a horse named Barak, and he took off from the Dome of the Rock, and he went to the moon. Way before NASA, Muhammad went on the moon, riding his human-headed Pegasus donkey. The view is that the jinn are real, but they're unseen, created from smokeless fire, and they are morally accountable like humans. The Quran represents or presents the jinn as part of the unseen. A group of jinn is described as hearing the Quran and believing in it. But they have free will, they're judged for their deeds, and it reinforces the idea of unseen divine power. Fascinating. They're not the same as genie, but they've been blended in popular culture. And that's kind of like demons. You know, demons, fallen angels, Nephilim. A lot of our concepts, even Satan, Lucifer, a lot of these are mostly literary. These are from popular culture. These are collaborative creations and fan fiction. They're not scripturally accurate depictions of things as the religion believes them to be, although the followers tend to believe it. Like people who tell you you're going to hell. You mean like Dante's Inferno? I mean, if you look at the word of hell, it means like a hole in the ground, a grave. Another name for hell refers to a very specific dump outside of Jerusalem. Hades, underworld. None of these are places of torment. That's kind of, I think that's specifically derived, like the idea of like very creative torments. That's Dante's Inferno. Like if you steal, you're going to this level and this will happen to you. If you're lustful, this will happen to you. If you're greedy, this will happen to you. Well, the punishment fits the crime. There should be a separate circle in hell for content thieves. Like fight the, fittest flat earther. There needs to be a special place in hell for these YouTube and TikTok grifters who don't give attribution to the people they steal from. T-Dog says, for more info about Jinn, check out Wishmaster Movies. Well, I came across this book called Jinn Summoning. Very poorly written, bad grammar. Something, I guess it was just the translation. But it supposedly represented an underground, forbidden, banned practice that could get you killed in some areas. And it's basically a way of summoning jinn, specifically the non-believers, the tricksters. And it says you have to frame your wishes, your spells, your requests in such a way that they can't use your words against you and twist your words. Talks about you have to go outside of town, away from humans, away from civilization, preferably a crossroads, which kind of makes me think about Robert Johnson, one of the first members of the 27 Club, who has this myth that he went to the crossroads in Mississippi at the Delta, this certain location. I think you can actually go there. Are you familiar with Robert Johnson? I mean, he didn't make this up. It's this idea that you can go to the crossroads at the edge of town a certain number of nights in a row, and a devil or the devil will show up. The myth says he met the devil at a crossroads and traded his soul for extraordinary guitar skill. Crossroad Blues, Hellhound on My Trail. They say the devil deal is folklore, and that he actually learned from some other person how to play guitar. But the story was that you go to the crossroads and you can summon some interdimensional being to make a deal with you, and the deal has strings attached. And with him, it was an early death. Fame, fortune, early death. Willie Morgan says, ironically, Vikings said hell is covered in ice and cold. Well, at the bottom of hell, it's ice. So Satan is like really big and his wings flap and it keeps everything cold. And then in his mouth, he's chewing a couple of people. He's like chewing on the bodies. He's chewing on Judas and the betrayer of Julius Caesar, Brutus or something. So yeah, you have the devil chewing on the betrayer of Caesar and Jesus. That's another interesting element to the whole story. But yeah, the bottom of hell is cold. So cold as hell is actually an accurate expression. It's supposedly very cold. If you get to the bottom, I guess it depends. Australia is building Earth's black box that will record the demise of our civilization. So we talked about Disclosure Day, David Cope, who says aliens are a mathematical certainty. No, calling something a mathematical certainty is an appeal to possibility fallacy. Again, if you want to follow me on X, go to Real Tim Osman. The Weekly World News is back at it, not publishing in print, but the Insider tabloid is largely inspired by them, although we have a completely different direction. Alien reveals himself live on TV. They have Robert Harward pulling the alleged mask off, and he's an alien beneath it. I mean, this is a very mainstream conspiracy claptrap. So this might be interesting to you. A Norwegian neuroscientist spent 20 years proving that the act of writing by hand changes the human brain in ways that typing cannot. Handwriting, but not typewriting, leads to widespread brain connectivity. A high-density EEG study with implications for the classroom. This is a pretty good piece if you can find this article. She's describing how the act of physically writing is more engaging for your brain when you're trying to memorize something or think about something. And I find that to be true. When I'm typing, it's not like writer's block. I mean, I can type, I don't mind. But when I'm writing on paper, it's a little less linear. I will draw lines, circles, put in other bodies of text. And it seems a little more about pattern recognition and a little more random and free association. Whereas typing, it doesn't have that freedom. I think there's something to it. And I also noticed that when I take notes, I tend to memorize whatever it is I'm taking notes on, even though I don't ever actually go back and read my notes. I don't even have to have good handwriting, because just the act of writing it does seem to deepen the understanding for some reason. All right, I think we're getting to the end of today's list of topics. A chief exorcist for the Archdiocese of Washington says demons will disguise themselves as UFOs and orbs. You know, I predicted this. I said we're sliding into what I call an endarkenment. I said that they have reversed all the good done with movable type press and the Reformation by effacing our ability to tell the difference between real and fake. And they put us into a new dark age. And now it seems like they're infusing it with more superstition. And I don't see anybody challenging it. Where are the rational minds pushing back publicly against conversations about demons and ghosts and intelligent, or rather sentient AI? Like, I don't see any pushback. A man with perspective says the jinn could be a metaphor for human behavior, ideas and fears that spread invisibly between people, influencing them while still requiring free will to take effect. Yeah, you could make the argument that demons, jinn, that these are projections of aspects of ourselves. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you hear stories about werewolves. Well, at different times, you know, stories like that could explain a lot of the things that we have criminology to explain today. Do demons exist, like independent of us? Are these projections? Are they delusions? Are they creative ways of trying to explain the inner workings of the mind? These are very reductionist takes. Do I believe in demons? Not necessarily. Certainly not in the Hollywood version. But do I believe in non-corporeal sentience? I don't know if I'd use the word believe. I mean, I openly say I've had communication with the dead. Not in the Ouija board, Candace Owens, a ghost talked to me kind of way, but in another way entirely. Which isn't really the subject for this, but like, I have come to believe in I guess you could say continuity. I'm not saying immortality, but I don't have the assumption that your sentience ends at death. I think there might be a continuity of consciousness that's not embodied. So I don't think our consciousness is entirely embodied. So death just represents the severing from this lower part. And I think the higher part might be better informed, less egoic, outside time and space, and probably has a continuity that maybe even precedes our current existence, but I don't know. I'm kind of a believer in reincarnation for a few reasons. Like, it's very plausible to me. I certainly don't think there's any evidence for heaven or hell. Or if there is a heaven or hell, it's not an instantaneous destination. Because from what I've noted, the dead seem to lurk for a few days. And some will say, well, that's just a coping mechanism because you can't handle death. It's like, no, I handle death just fine. Like, look, I'm walking into Seattle with the full understanding that I might get nuked. Like, no, I'm not really worried about death. In fact, I've auto-hoaxed the whole thing. God Rules 1 says there's a profound connection between Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day and Barack Obama's Leave the World Behind. Now, these are connections I'm still looking into, but Disclosure Day does have some weird stuff with the animals, as does Leave the World Behind. Barack Obama visited the set of Disclosure Day, a visit which Steven Spielberg called a religious experience, in the context of saying that ufology is a belief system that makes the universe more profound. Again, Obama also visited The Boys. He was associated with the director of The Boys, which has predicted programming for Trump. Concurrent programming for Trump, confirmed. Leave the World Behind had predictive programming, confirmed. The writer of Disclosure Day wrote Snake Eyes, predictive programming for Charlie Kirk. So what you're seeing here, Metascriptor hanging out with the Metascriptor, who had Metascripted a previous movie, and Metascriptor Obama had also visited with Metascriptor with The Boys. We're looking at a high level directors who are involved at the level of writing our future, executing our future. But this is all intriguing. Now, the idea of the dead communicating with people, in my experience, and I'm just going off of anecdotal, no one I've spoken to about it has ever said, like Candace Owens has said, oh, the ghost came to me and said some stuff. It always comes in the form of, from observations I've had, actually there are various types. A lot of it contains synchronicities, like statistically impossible instances of messages being sent, but there have been other forms it's taken. I've had a couple people describe things where, and I've had these things too, but again, it's anecdotal, but I don't think it should be eliminated because science only measures what is, and you can explain everything about the world and human existence with the scientific method, and you don't have to include a soul. You don't have to include sentience or free will. You can actually remove all that if you're only examining things from down here. But down here isn't all there is, in my view, because I think that what is actually the end result of a process. And the process of things coming into existence is an ongoing process. The universe isn't a static construct, but it's coming into being, as are we. And the part of us that is non-embodied is the part that is coming into being. So we coexist in the now and in the future. And the part of us that is in the yet to be is sentient and aware outside of us, connected to us, and I believe would be the source for what we experience as intuition or synchronicity. And I think similarly, those who are disembodied, those who physically die, are still coexisting with us in this other area where we've always been interlinked. What Carl Jung called the collective consciousness, I think it's a thing. And I think it explains a lot. It explains intuition, telepathy, precognition, as well as the continuity of communication between the living and the so-called dead. I mean, in that sense, all these things can be explained if you are willing to just recognize the limitations of science. So it's not really science-based. You can't observe these things with science. Science has its limitations. Like the shape of the world concept or the world view, I recognize that. No, what I'm saying isn't recognized as scientifically valid to say that the universe doesn't exist until it's experienced. But to me, that's the only way I can find to explain the impossible, improbable, and even the cybernetic feedback loop between self and universe, or that's how it's experienced. All that can only be explained, if you ask me, if you don't subscribe to the idea of a static, unchangeable universe on which we're just objects living out our time here. But I think rather we are somehow ingrained into the process of it coming into being itself. Like it's a participatory universe that will and sentience could be considered, in this sense, maybe an aspect of physics that's not accounted for in the standard models. A man with perspective says, I've experienced it with music. Other people I know, broken lights turning on, never ghosts though. Yeah, I've had one experience where a radio turned on and there were others in the room, and it turned on at a very specific verse to a song that had been the subject of a discussion the week before. And it was a very clear indication. I won't get into the details here, but I put it in a manuscript that I'm going to publish sometime in the next month or two. But unequivocally, a direct message. And you could say, oh, you're reading into things. Well, I'm like, but yeah, now we're getting into the area of poltergeist activity, things moving. And that's a little harder to hand wave away as wishful thinking. Donald Hoffman claims, and this is a professor at the University of California, Irvine, consciousness shapes reality in new podcast. I haven't listened to it, but I'm gonna look into that today. I've been finding a lot of people kind of going into this area of discourse, and I really talked about it in the past, but now that people are talking about ghosts and demons and aliens unabashedly, well, we should be able to have serious discourse about things that have previously been relegated to paranormal. Chud the Builder on video hitting on a 16-year-old at a mall while being engaged. Now this story here. A woman falls into a manhole as a loose cover gives way. A lot of people are saying this is AI. She's walking down the sidewalk and she falls into, this is like Super Mario Brothers. Like it's just like she gets warped. Okay, there's someone behind her. Anyway, people are saying it's AI. And honestly, that's a reasonable thing to suggest because it's very clickbaity. Like I've seen people getting pulled into escalators and their legs get sucked into it. Those things don't actually do that. Armin says, this is leaning towards simulationism as a new mainstream paradigm in my opinion. I've never met anybody outside of fringe red pill territory that considers simulation theory to be viable. In fact, it's not even recognized as a theory. It never was. It's unfalsifiable. It's a metaphysical model. But yeah, I've only ever seen it in the fringe. When people say simulation, it's like an unserious thing. I've never seen anybody take it seriously. I mean, the Mandela effect did, but we killed that. It's a divine fallacy. It's actually lazy. It's like, I'm too lazy to fill in the gaps, so let me go ahead and just throw in magic. Oh, the sim did it. But as far as it becoming mainstream, it's an unserious idea. I know Alex Jones is into it, Joe Rogan's into it, but again, I've only ever seen it appealing to red pill types, which kind of makes sense. The non-Christian truthers have to have their own version of God. And so for them, it's like simulation could be their god and AI is their devil. But whenever I hear people say simulation, and there's still a lot of people today who will say, oh, but double slit experiments. But we've been talking about this idea of a merge between the left and the right, and who's going to be responsible for the next big one. And Megyn Kelly is saying something interesting here. She says, the line between left and right is merging. There's something rising out of that. And I was bringing up Bernie Sanders and his views on AI, and how a lot of lefties are anti-AI because of what it does to the environment. The right is against AI because of demons. Another example where left and the right agree. So there are many points where they agree, but you have to remember, they're not uniting. They agree, but they disagree on the causes. So both left and right agree that climate change is real. But the right says Bill Gates is doing it with stratospheric aerosol injections and geoengineering. The left says capitalists are doing it. Fossil fuel, big oil, you guys are doing it. The West is doing it. So they both agree it is real. They disagree on the cause. Aliens, same deal. They both agree, but one says these are angels. The other side says, no, these are our demons. So you see these agreements, but it doesn't really mean anything. So they both hate AI. Common agreement. But they don't actually agree. Again, the right is only against it because of demons. And the left is against it because of environmental concerns. Cupstar says, what kind of CCTV records a 9:16 aspect ratio perfect for TikTok? Armin Ross says, when mainstream states that belief changes material reality, that's an open door to simulationism. Well, mainstream has already put out like The Secret. And they put these ideas out there of mind choosing realities, magical thinking. And I do see a lot of people, like, look, simulation theory is not new. It's been harped on for a long time. But like nobody in the scientific community takes it seriously. No serious thinkers take it seriously. And I've only seen clowns like Elon Musk push it. But it's just a throwaway God and the God of the gaps explanation for things you can't explain. So you're an atheist and you see glitches in the matrix because the news looks fake and it matches the movie. And you can't say, oh, that's God. God is sending the message. No, you'll say the simulation did it. Do you remember after Luigi Mangioni's shooting, people said, oh, that's proof we're in a video game? But there was no serious thinkers out there trying to make the case for it because you'd get laughed off the stage. Alienology is very mystic, but it's not really simulation. Like alienology is more like a mystical new age or paranormal. Although, I mean, simulation kind of fits into it, but I'm saying it's such a dumb idea. And it's such a lazy way to explain things that have more mundane explanations. All right, continuing here. I think we've covered everything, like I said. I'm going to be working on my Seattle video. It needs to get out here soon. I will be leaving in a week. I'll be flying out there, one-way ticket, planning to drive back. If you want to support the trip, here's why you should. This is going to be the PSYOP of the century, and this puts us ground zero so we can introduce the off-world stage perspective and co-opt the alternative media gatekeeping operation. We can steer people into this. So that's one reason to do it. B, nothing happens, but the entire build-up to it is an opportunity to educate and discuss everything related to Metascript. And there's a lot of interest in 611, always has been. And every year, all the big channels are going to talk about it. And this year, I will be there on the ground to verify anything, which means the channel will grow from this as well. will probably pick up a few hundred subscribers and live viewers, if not many more, depending on how many people are looking and how well I can, position myself. So that's the reason why we should do it. The third reason is if it is a PSYOP and we are able to establish a foothold here, this will be really the launching pad for the IPS on the world stage. Not quarantined, not fringe, but now center stage in a position where our criticisms will no longer be ignorable. And of course, there's the third option. Something happens, it's real, the space station falls on me, or I get nuked, and in which case, I don't have a dead man switch. Someone said I should get one. Maybe I should. So the dead man switch would be like, I'll pre-schedule an email with all the relevant information, logins, passwords, so I can hand over the keys to the tank. And I'll date it for like July 4th, which gives me plenty of time to get back here and stop the email from being sent. So if I survive the date, I'll just cancel the email. If I don't, then on July 4th, everything will be revealed. So yes, I'll make a dead man switch. Excellent idea. I'll have to send all of the trading cards and everything else to someone. So there's a new movie coming out, Godzilla Minus Zero. It comes out in November. I watched Godzilla Minus One. Godzilla Minus Zero. Again, Godzilla is a nuke. He's a metaphor for the nuke. It comes out on 11/3. The other element about this one, I believe, is it takes place in America. So again, Godzilla on the world stage. 11/3 is Godzilla's birthday. Very significant date all around. And I'm thinking too, so we're looking at movies that come after. So Disclosure Day coming after 6/11 would make sense. The Odyssey coming out a month after would still make sense, because The Odyssey is a movie about what happens after the big war, after the big destruction, and then it's this journey through the ocean, fighting the ocean god. And I think that's another element to it as well. The water, the flood element. So it could be, because like after 9/11, there were still a lot of movies that related to 9/11. Some of them actually altered scenes because it was so predictive. But you still have these movies that reinforced the mood. Like the post 9/11 movies that were obviously coordinated to go along with it. So I'm looking at, so we got predictive programming, concurrent programming, and there's a third category. I call it reinforcement programming. So if they're going to do a big event, you're going to see the predictive stuff. You're going to see the concurrent stuff. But then if you look ahead, you would expect to see reinforcement programming. What comes after? And so I'm kind of thinking the Odyssey would be part of that reinforcement, if anything. So I have my eyes out. Look at what movies are coming out after June, and how many of these would correlate with a post-doomsday scenario. A Man with Perspective says, simulation theory allows supernatural things to exist in a material world. Yeah, exactly. Well, simulation theory and such, like aliens even, they allow atheists to be religious. Even climate change. It's an eschatology for the atheist. Gaia is a God construct. So they've been given God constructs and scientific, or rather science fiction concepts that are syncretically blended with religious concepts in order to create a world paradigm that unites all religions and atheists. I mean, think about it. All the religions have their own version of heaven, but the atheists don't believe in heaven. But they all believe in space, atheists and non-atheists alike. And space serves the same purpose. It's a path to something higher. It's utopian. It's a future that we can all access if we all collectively agree as one. When we go to space, we're going as one. So it's the perfect tool for a one world religion as far as getting everyone on the same sheet, same goal, same outcome, same paradise. So space is heaven for the atheists. Cupstar says Avengers Doomsday comes out in December. Now, if 611 comes true, Jurassic Liars being correct, it would imply that his 8-4 prediction is also going to come true, which will make things even more intense. Although he's not going to like it if 611 comes true and it's just a psyop. Like, he's not going to be happy if I'm in Seattle on 611 and I don't die. He's not going to be happy because it will mean that he's been hyping up a psyop and not a biblical cataclysm that's real. So I'm very problematic to the doomsday scenario from a religious perspective. I'm problematic to the doomsday scenario from a psyop perspective. So my presence in Seattle will be very problematic if we do it right. Peter says, Tom Cruise movie Digger sounds like it's about Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, I still have this ongoing theory about Tom Cruise. Separate note. I'm going to look up Digger. So Tom Cruise is in Oblivion, where he goes down to a stadium, which ties into the Seattle thing. And the stadium had been nuked. And he throws a touchdown pass. There was some other clue there. He had a dog, which kind of evokes a boy and his dog, a post-nuke apocalypse movie. But he had a bobblehead of Elvis on the dashboard of his spaceship. Okay, here we go. 2026 dark comedy. A comedy of catastrophic proportions to be revealed in October. Let's find out more. And Tom Cruise is also both a meta-scripter and an actor in movies that contain predictive programming. Vanilla Sky is one of the best examples of a movie with a Gnostic subtext. 2026 Digger film is in post-production right now. It's a comedy. What's it about? And in many movies, he's represented as a sun god, a hero, this solar sun god hero archetype who fights the darkness. Tom Cruise is the Scientology Jesus. All kinds of 33s encoded in all of his movies. Okay, here we go. It's a comedy about the most powerful man in the world who's on a frantic mission to prove he's humanity's savior after causing a disaster himself. It's a big, absurd power and fall from grace movie, a comedy of catastrophic proportions. Tom Cruise plays Digger Rockwell, a larger-than-life global figure trying to stop the catastrophe he started. Yeah, this does sound like it would probably fit what happens next. Well, Tom Cruise in Maverick. Maverick 3, or Top Gun 3 is coming out. I talked about Maverick 2 and all the solar symbolism. It's deep. I have a few articles about it. But in that one, he's confronting Kane. And Kane is played by Ed Harris, who's trying to stop his mission. And I think that's very consistent with the actor Ed Harris playing the antagonist to the sun god, the hero. Because he's the same actor who plays Kristoff, who's stopping the awakening of Truman Burbank. So he doesn't become a true man. He stays a fake man until he leaves the set. And then he's the man in black in Westworld, killing the synths before they can break out of the sim. He's the engineer in Snowpiercer, another closed system apocalypse movie, where in all of these, he's like the demiurge. He's the controller of these situations, the evil presence, the matrix, the one that has to be overcome. But it made me think, in real life, Tom Cruise says his mission to space has been blocked by the Trump administration. Hasn't gone into much detail, but there's this Trump-Cruise antagonism blocking his mission. And I wonder if that's just script. Like, did he really just abandon his plan to go to space? I find that hard to believe, especially given his proximity to Stanley Kubrick. I wonder if there's something else to it involving Trump. I mean, we'll see. That's speculation. But I don't think we've heard the end of Tom Cruise going to space. I actually think Tom Cruise is planned. I think his world stage character is supposed to possibly even die in space. I have a few reasons for thinking so. Armin Ross says Ed Harris was the main character in The Abyss, an alien contact movie. Isn't that James Cameron? The Abyss. And right now, that's one of the things they're saying. Aliens are underwater. Look, they're pushing so much paranormal. Like, all the paranormal stuff is now mainstream. Like, what the heck is going on? Mainstream has gone tabloid. It's gone paranormal. It's gone supernatural. And it frequently admits the perspectives of priests and their supernatural, superstitious opinions. To me, this is degradation. This is decline. This is cognitive sabotage. And I don't see any pushback against it, which is why we exist. You don't see any pushback against PSYOPs. You see participation in the PSYOPs. You see true belief in them, and then you see the other side caught up in the subplots. Again, if you didn't catch the memo, every conspiracy theory is a subplot to a fake event. Prove me wrong. And if you're still pushing conspiracy theories, you really ought to consider what that means. Doesn't matter what it is. All of your anti-positions, all of your conspiracy positions, your fighting the InfoWar positions, those are all subplots on the fake timeline. So you should know by now that it's time to abandon these things. It's time to abandon all of these pointless, baseless opinions and stop sharing them as facts. And then if you care about facts and truth, you will want to get involved in this deconstruction project. All right, well, we are catching up here on the last few days of events. I'm going to be releasing a lot of content between now and my trip. So if you're a subscriber, I'm releasing a lot of shorts to break down the world stage for newbies. And by shorts, I mean 5 and 10 minute breakdowns. I have a lot of them scripted. I'm going to start recording those today. I'm going to make them available for subscribers on Patreon and Substack. And then I'll allow them to go public on the 11th when I head out. So if you want to support the channel, that's one way to do it. Join now. You'll get those videos first, and I'll mainstream them after. The point of it is this. Regardless of what happens, if I get a lot of new viewers, which I expect I will, given the location, I want to be able to direct them directly to educational content. Content to bring them up to speed with the off-world stage perspective. So I plan on creating a series of videos, which I will have at ips.monster, just embedded right there. So people go there, start here, start here, start here. This is the world stage. These are the two timelines. This is what PSYOPs really are. These are the guardrails. And this is the political horseshoe triangulation closed system of information that keeps everybody compartmentalized and controlled. And here's where we are. I can break this stuff down into digestible videos that noobs will grasp. And I've been working on this for some time, but I'm finally ready to start recording. So I'll be working on that and the Seattle predictive programming video. I'll see you all in Discord. If you need a link, go to ips.monster. T-Dog says, abandon all